Fishing Gurus podcast.
Well, first and foremost, mate, a massive congratulations on winning the 2021 Parkdean Masters final. How the hell does that feel?
It feels really, really nice, Matt. Really nice in a strange way. And I know, obviously, with the way you're going to do it, I'll explain a bit more in the end as such. But yeah, really, really nice. Now I've had some time to think about it as well. And whilst we're on this subject, you've obviously come back from Bulgaria yesterday, so a massive well done to you and the Barnsley
Thank
Bats.
you, mate.
Second in that field is unreal.
Appreciate that. We've got a little podcast, next week. I don't know which one's going to be out first, or
Yeah.
not, but we've got Ringer, Mr. Steve Ringer, and Mick Viles coming in.
Oh, lovely.
So we both fished in different teams,
Yes.
and we're going to do one on them as well.
We don't
brilliant.
mess around in this show, do we?
Got to get everyone in. Get them all in.
I'll be really looking forward to that because
Oh,
obviously
thanks,
for me,
mate.
team fishing in the past, again, we can talk about that in the future as such, but it's different. But what I see with you and the Barnsley boys is what team fishing's about. Now, we've all been, different teams as such, and it's not all like that. So to see you boys do well when you're sat at home, it's generally like, I'm not a patriotic person, but when England are playing on TV, I want them to win and I get really fired up, even though I don't even play football. But seeing you boys do well, because I know, obviously, a lot of you individually, and it's like, I'd love to see Matt do well. I'd love to see Denty do well. I love James, do you know what I mean? And obviously, I know Andy Geldart doesn't do much, but again,
It's part of the team.
he's part of the team, and I've seen him a lot at Cornwall. Again, Lee Kerry, and it's before you know it, you want the whole team to do well.
I
So
appreciate that a lot, mate, and I'll pass it on to all the boys. And yeah, it's
I
really
know,
nice.
I know. In the past, when I fished for Dorking, there was that rivalry, weren't there? But
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
now I don't do it. I'm genuinely buzzing when I see you boys do well, and
Yeah.
I know how much it means to you. So yeah,
Thanks a
massive
lot.
well
Aye,
done, mate.
exactly the same, mate.
Yeah.
When it come through, Paul's won the Parkdean final. Obviously, 15 or 16 years ago to Whiteacres. I know you've got 4 festival wins
Yeah.
to your name, which is ridiculously good anyway. You obviously strive for more. I know
Yeah,
exactly what
yeah,
you're like.
Yeah,
And 8 finals, I reckon you've been in.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
8,
it's-
maybe 9. It
yeah.
could be. We were adding it up.
yeah.
And then you've gone and won it. What a fantastic achievement. You must be so, so proud.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Matt, it was surreal a little bit, to be honest, because normally when I go to Whiteacres, it's, I would say probably before COVID, it would definitely be 5 or 6 years where that was everything to me. That I know for you personally, your ambition is the England team. For me, it was all about the Preston Festival. So every year, and the reason being is I got to find out where I was in the pecking order. Now, for those that haven't fished a Whiteacres Festival, basically the Preston one is the one that you can qualify normally for the Parkdean. So that's the one that attracts the best anglers. But you get to find out a lot about where you are in the pecking order of match fishing.
And
the
why
oth-
is that? Because there's so many
just
good
all the
anglers
best.
in
It's
that
the,
one.
it's the cream of UK match fishing. So this is what I mean. Like I'm a southerner at heart. Basically, that I know it's a bit different now. I fish in the Midlands a little bit more, and I fish up north. But that was the time when you could sit next to, say, Andy Geldart, who what I do at Gold at the time, the way I fish, totally different than him, and he can do something next to you, and you think, right, well, I've been found out today, he showed me, but then you go home and all of a sudden what he's shown you, you take it apart there. And so, again, like a ground bait in the edge thing, everything about Whiteacres, where you get the cream from all around the country, all the little tricks and tips, everyone's got all their guns blazing because they're there to win, they want to do well. And you find, for me, there's no place to hide there. It's so diverse, the fishing, F1, carp, obviously you've got Porth. But for me, that's what fishing's all about, is where I am. We've all got certain goals. My goal is there's people that I put on a pedestal as such, and I want to be known in that. That's my end goal. When I can't do it anymore, I want to be, mentioned along those names. So for
and
me,
do you think fishing Whiteacres has helped you towards achieving that goal?
Massive, because it's like gems of information. So again, I could talk forever about fishing. I know what I'm like. I'm bad for it. But one that really stands out to me was I was struggling a bit, to be honest, where I do really well. When I drew well, I do well. Because again, from background at Gold, you fish the same way as you do on the best peg to the worst peg. So I never really had that. I had that when I was on them. That's all I were ever going to do. So if it half works right, you're not going to beat me. But the problem, my results were, when I drew well, I done well. But when I drew a peg that was, say, maybe capable of a second, maybe a third in the section, my problem is I'd go there and I'd try and win the section from it. And you couldn't do it. And it was a chance conversation with Darren Cox. And I've got so many of these events in my head that just spring back to mind. And Darren actually won the festival. And I was speaking to Darren, and the nice thing about, again, with Whiteacres is, although Darren won the festival and it was massive for him, he could see that there was something missing for me. And he spent a good sort of 20 minutes or so explaining to me.
And what did he say? He
basically said, wherever you draw, you fish for what your peg is capable of. And if you do that, you will win multiple Whiteacres festivals, because you've got the ability. You do it when you draw well. The problem is for argument's sake, you draw peg 3 on Twin Oaks, you're trying to fish for the fish that live in sort of 16 on average.
Yes.
It's totally different there. You've got to fish for silvers, you've got to fish for a few carps, some F1s. And that one conversation changed my results. Now, if you didn't, with Whiteacres, not only for me do you find out where you are, but you learn information from what I call the 1%. That's where they all are. And it's not very often you can rub shoulders with people like that. So when I look back at my fishing, Whiteacres has taught me so much. And that's one thing, it's...
Before we get, talking about Whiteacres, before we get on, obviously we want to talk a lot about the big match that you've just won.
Yeah.
Before we do, though, in all them years of fishing Whiteacres and all that experience you've just mentioned, how did you find the Parkdean finals that you've been in previously? Because you've been in 8. That's a lot of big final experience on the same lake at the same venue.
Yeah.
Any particular ones of them other finals that you've been in, which you haven't won, stick out in your mind?
Yeah, a lot, Matt, to be honest. And this is the difference. So for me, it's weird because you speak to some people. Again, I'll mention Andy Geldart because he'd been there a long time with me. For Andy, he makes no bones about it. He's there to win the final. And for me, it's never been about, if you said to me, you can win the festival on the Preston, but you can't fish the final, I'd say, give me the trophy and I'm gone home. Because that's my goal. And the reason being, I've been in a few of these finals, so this might hopefully help you understand. The very first final that I was ever in, I drew next to Grant.
Is this the Parkdean
final when Grant won it. And I don't, again, the pegging's a bit different, but I try, it's roughly about peg 43. It was the first peg out of the islands. And I think that's where Adam Wakeling won it from as well. Now that day I was behind the island, and at that point in my life, I was doing a lot of F1 fishing. Not the F1 fishing I do now, Snake Lakes at Tunnel, but at Willer Park. And it was all about fishing 4 mil shallow for catching these F1s. And I was so in tune with it. But the reality of that final is I might as well have been sat on the moon, because the nature of the pegs, there's certain areas where you've got to fish a certain way. And he caught Caraccio shallow. Whereas because I'm sat behind the island, I can't put any pressure on him. And so you've done all of that work to get there. And the reality is, it doesn't matter.
He was always going to win.
I was never going to beat him, but I could have never even put him under pressure. When on to another final, when Andy G won it, Andy Geldart from peg 3, I was next to you on peg 1.
What were I on?
You were on 1, I think. Yeah, you were next to me, definitely.
We're all 3 of us in a line.
All 3 of us in a line. So you was on 1, I was on 2, and Andy was on 3.
Yeah.
And it was a similar sort of situation there. Andy caught really well with some Caraccios in open water to start with. And he's got the point of the island, you've got the other point. And I'm behind the island. And behind the islands in history on that lake they're never as good as the corners, basically, especially when you catch them for carp. And I'm going nowhere, and I've loose fed some pellets, and I've caught a couple of carp, and Andy's flicking a few in, but I've just been a bit more aggressive. And then I'm thinking, if I can drag these carp round, and then Andy's not daft. He's just like, you ain't having that to yourself. Chuck to the point, obviously loose feeding a bit more, and it's game over. And again, it was like, I can't put him under any pressure because whatever I do, I'm not getting a response. I'm not getting a bite. And when you look at it, it's heartbreaking, man. I'd be lying if I said to you, because again, I pride myself on what matters to me is if I drew next to you at Hallcroft and you beat me by more than, say we were fishing for £30, if you beat me by more than £4 or £5, unless it was a freak day where you caught a load on pellets or something, but say that average match and you beat me by more than that, I'd be fuming with myself, because I know that I put enough time and effort in to be at that level. Regardless of winning the match or winning whatever, my competition is directly between me and you. And that's what a lot of it is with me. It's, other people, they have a different, I want to win this. For me, it's not so much about, don't get me wrong, winning the Whiteacres Festival, that was my goal for a long period. But because my life's different now, if that makes sense, you know, where I coach, I can't be, because you know how much I put into fishing, basically. I'm a very, I would say, an emotional person.
Yeah. Very deep with your fishing. It's very
it's my life,
yeah.
You know, and I expect a lot from myself. Not a lot in return, a lot from myself. I expect that in return. So the reality of fishing is it's not fair. A lot of the time it's not very fair. We've all been in situations, and there's certain matches, what I would call fairer, where you've got more chance of winning.
Yeah, from more pegs.
From more pegs, and then other matches you've got less chance of winning. So what I try and do now is, the problem, what happened with me, I'd say a few years ago, was I was very up and down. So just say I fished on Wednesday and you phoned me on a Thursday, you would know within about 40 seconds less than
how you've done.
Exactly, because my whole emotional well-being was based on something that was outside of my control. So again, without going too deep about it, a lot of what I do is about growth. So I go somewhere, if I've drawn a good peg, I go there and feel like, right, I feel like I should win today. And again, in the past, I struggled with confidence, and I always focused again because I want to be in that 1%, that elitist with the people that I will mention of where I want to be. My problem was I only ever focused on the negative. So I had sort of a negative mindset. And what you struggle with that is you never have any confidence because you're always self-doubting. And what I've learned to do over a period of time now is have a balance of scales, if you can imagine it. So after my match, regardless of where I've drawn, there's a positive side of my scale and there's a negative side of my scale. So I always start with the positives. Now, the positives, a lot of it can be about technique. How was my casting? You know, and I reference it a lot where this is how I judge myself. So there's certain anglers, and I try and mention it as best I can now to try and give you some explanation. So it's who I consider to be the number one, the very best at whatever given discipline I'm doing. So say my rod and line fishing, method feeder fishing, I look at it and think, how would William have done from my peg today?
And Will Raisin, you're talking about.
So I remember a match that I had at Belingi, and this is where I've got to be careful with the way that I word it. And I had a mint day, I caught £240, but I probably had about 30 or 40 miscasts. Now I know if he'd have drawn that peg, he wouldn't have had as many miscasts as me. And after the match, I was a bit, come on, Paul, ain't that far a chuck? It's not that windy. I know that I can perform better than that.
In terms of technique, casting, accuracy.
Because I know them miscasts. Every time I miscast, you've missed a chance of a bite.
Yeah.
So that's how I do it, and I judge my fishing. So I try and take all the positives. What did I do really well at? My shipping, how good was that? You know, did I have my rollers in the right position? How good was my loose feeding? How good was my casting? How good was my decision making? Did I have the right kit? Did I have the right elastics? And then the negative side, but the negative side comes the growth. And I maybe you could call it positive side, and then where do I need to improve? But I try and look at it as a balance of scales now. So the negative side of it, what wasn't so good. So that way, regardless of whether I've won, I could draw the worst peg and go and feel, do you know what, I fished really well today. And that's what I need to do, if that sort of makes sense.
So applying that to what we're talking about, the Parkdean finals.
Yeah, sorry.
Obviously.
Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense what you're saying, because obviously you've dwelled on the one when you're next to Grant.
Yeah.
And you've dwelled on the one when you're next to Andy Geldart.
Yes.
And basically, that is amazing advice, I think.
Yeah.
That even in the finals, even when you've potentially got a hammer in, you can still come away and feel really good at the fact that you've got loads of room for growth. You know what you've done wrong, whether it's... And even if the fish haven't been in front of you, because you are stuck behind an island, can I improve on my casting? Can I improve on my feeding accuracy? So what we're saying is the experience you've had in fishing them finals has obviously grown, built, and...
The thing is when you put a lot in, and you'd be exactly the same as me, and I think anyone would. When the thought of, oh, I'd love to do this and I'd love to win it, and when you get a chance, and if you mess up, I had a chance there. It's not that bad. It feels bad because obviously it's going to hurt, but nothing feels worse than going and thinking, I never even had prayer today.
Yeah,
I've done
have a
all
chance.
of that.
Yeah. And that happens in fishing,
it
Paul.
does.
That can happen quite a lot.
The problem is with that is it affects me. It's important about... You need to know yourself in what I would consider a sport where there's a lot of things that are outside of your control. The thing is, the chance of me beating Roger Federer at tennis, it's never going to happen. The chance of me beating Ronnie at snooker, well, unless he had killed over, there's no chance. In fishing, he could draw next to me and hammer me.
Yeah, it could happen.
And that's the thing for me, because again, I'm that sort of, I ain't that type of person where I'd love to be able to go, oh, well, I never had a chance, onwards and upwards, on to the next one. It still hurts me. So what I've got to try and do is control how long it hurts me for, if that makes sense.
And take something good out of it.
And try and take, because it's all about growth. That's the biggest thing. What I try and focus on now is good, bad, or indifferent, on to the next one. And you win because of not so good matches.
It'll be interesting. Now we've heard about a couple of potentially bad ones.
Yes.
I can't wait to talk about
the main one.
The one that you've actually won. So you actually qualified for this year's Parkdean in the Maver Festival a couple of weeks before the actual final. How was that week for you, your qualifying week? How did it go? Yeah,
so again, touching on at the very start, the festival is what means the most to me, because that's where, again, touching on the fairness side of it, 9 peg sections, and again, from what Darren said, it's about, if you need a perfect score, 5 section wins to win, and you haven't hand on heart had that chance, you were never going to win. But there's a lot of sets of pegs where you can finish top 10. There's a lot of sets of pegs that you can hand on heart, if you were maybe slightly better at a given discipline. You might not feel at the time, but I promise you, in years to come, you'd be looking back thinking, do you know what, if I could have done that, maybe I would have. And I feel like there's a lot more chance for success, basically. So again, for me, it's always about the festivals. Now, normally, before COVID, it would always been the Maver and Preston back to back, and I couldn't get on the Preston because obviously the numbers are reduced, and truthfully, with there being less people, it didn't quite feel as the same. And without Porth being in, for me, it doesn't feel the same, because I've had to learn that.
Yeah, you loved Porth as well, didn't you?
I loved Porth because it wasn't easy for me at the start.
We're talking about Porth Reservoir.
Porth Reservoir.
Big natural venue. Totally different.
Totally different. Yeah. And you've got again, you could win the match outright in 4 days on all the Carpy lakes. Go Porth. You don't win your section, you're not winning the festival. So it's a different mentality. It's a different set of gear. It's a different learning. So to win a Whiteacres Festival, you have to have that in your armoury. You can't wing it there. There might be once every pancake day you could set a method feeder up and maybe catch a load of bream, but you couldn't go and fish a festival and hope for that to happen. So you have to have that in your armoury. So for me, without it there, it doesn't feel what Whiteacres feels to me, because I look at it as a true test. So for those that might not have been to Whiteacres before, I try and name the rotation. So A section's Match Lake. Roughly, you've got 2 sections of Match Lake. You've got a good section of the Match Lake, and then you've got the arms, which...
Is this where you were the first day?
No, I quickly just talk through the rotation and the lakes, and then I'll talk through my rotation. So A section is Match Lake. It can be good, it can be tough. Then normally B section, you've got Twin Oaks and Trelawney, both sort of F1s on both of them, some carp in both of them. And then you've normally got the split sections, so Tree Waters, Acorn Canal, or Tree Waters and Jennis. Then you go to Porth, which is a natural, and then you finish up on Belingi, which is arguably the best carp venue ever
in the universe.
Yeah, it's frightening.
Yeah, phenomenal.
How it
place.
stands the pressure, for 2 weeks is ridiculous. So that's Whiteacres. So talking through my Maver Festival, day one was actually where I normally am, to be fair, early numbers of Twin Oaks. Don't get me wrong, I have my odd dip when I'm on 14 and 16, but I'm normally from peg 2 to 4. That's normally my bit on Twin Oaks. But again, talking through what Darren explained to me, I've learned that little area really quite well. So I started off on a feeder, and normally it's sort of the first half hour on a feeder, because a method, you normally catch a few mud carp, and then really it's all about what you catch short, worms and casters normally. Last year there was a lot of live maggots because there were no blips feeding, and I won both Twin Oaks, my section, both times last time, just feeding live maggots. So this time there was a lot more blips feeding. So I went down the worms and casters route, caught a few F1s long. It wasn't brilliant. So basically I caught one carp second shot, and there was an odd little pimp coming up on my long line. And down there, the bottom's a bit softer. So I wanted to get on it, because the F1s, the carp there, they're average sort of on the feed. I'd say normally, I don't know, £3 to £5. But these F1s are massive now. They're like back Twin Oaks. They're like,
big
they're
beaks on them,
units.
aren't they? Lovely old goldfish.
Yeah, like £3 to £5. So if you can line them up, you can half catch a big weight dead quick. And the fact that I knew they were on my pole line, I had to get in on it. And I've gone in on it. I caught really well. A few great big F1s.
And what did you catch them on?
Worms. Just feeding
Brilliant.
worms, sort of few micros mixed up. Your type of mix that I know you use a lot of. Probably like an inch bit of worm. Just trying to get bites, put fish in the net. Again, that's what it's all about. You can't win it early on, but if you keep catching something, especially in them no numbers, normally it depends on what happens short and what happens in the edge. But if you've ticked over, put some fish in the net, you wouldn't believe what they weigh. Like my best weigh.
So what did you end up with that particular day then?
£106.
Section win?
Yeah, I just beat Phil. Caught a few fish short, and obviously a few in the edge late. So that was a brilliant start. Then day 2 was on Trelawney. I drew peg 14, which is a really good peg.
Nice.
Now, the hard thing with Whiteacres is you're only allowed 8 pints of bait. Last year, you were allowed 8 pints of whatever you wanted. So you could have taken 8 pints of live maggots if you wanted, which is perfect. But this year, you were only allowed to take 4 pints of maggots and casters mixed. So you haven't really got enough to do both, so you've got to commit to one or the other. And it was forecast for light rain all day. Now, anyone who knows that tried to fish live maggots in rain, if they get wet and they float, you've got 4 pints of bait you can't use. So I was debating in the car park. I probably sat in my van for a good 10, 15 minutes because I wanted to fish with maggots because I've done so well on that lake. But I was frightened of having bait that had it get wet. And it's not like, you go to a venue where it doesn't matter your bait limit. You can chuck it in your bucket, a load of maize, leave them alone 10 minutes. And then, when you've only got 4 pints, you can't run the risk. And I took casters. Yeah, I almost got away with it. I lost a bream that jumped out of the water.
Oh, no.
And I lost a carp that snagged me. Now, as a twisted fate would have it, at the end of it, it probably actually helped. But I lost the section by 10 ounce.
Oh, no.
So, I was fuming at the time.
Second.
Yeah, again, because I know if I'd have had live maggots and I could have fished them, I know I'd have caught more than that. When the fish are not responding, you feed live maggots, they're forever leaving your peg. So you can be aggressive with something when the fish don't want to feed and catch everything that swims. So, that was that day. And then the third day, where did I draw the third day? So I was on Python. Now, I've only been on Python twice, a newly dug lake, and obviously it's a newly stocked lake. And there's certain areas that seem to be, which I think is the case with most lakes. And basically, I opted to fish across to start with because I felt that was my safest start, and then throw live maggots short because that's how I caught best when I was on there last time. And there was a few fish to be caught to the island. Didn't catch a lot in 2.5 foot, so I thought it doesn't matter. I'll go in 3.5 foot, and I caught 3 of the tiniest carassios you've ever seen in your life, at like 16 meters. So I'm thinking I'm not really going anywhere here. Phil Canning, he was he's not the end, but he's on the sort of bit that juts out a little bit, and he's catching some great big ones. And Phil's a brilliant angler, and that's again what it's about with Whiteacres. You've always got someone to beat in your section as such.
A good angler.
A good
somewhere.
angler, yeah. And you, again, everyone brings their A game there. It's not like an open where someone might be a bit hammered, the night before. It's different, And Phil won the section. He had £44. I ended up changing my match. I dropped in short, caught a few. And then I thought, right, I need to change this now because the only place I'm going to get a bite is loose feeding. So I plumbed up a new line at 11 metres, started catting some maggots there, live maggots again. Dropped in short, never really happened, but I went on this, caught an odd fish, and then last 15 minutes I dropped short and caught 2 more little carp for like £4 roughly. So they're quite big fish. But I ended up with £35 and Phil had 44. And even speaking to Phil afterwards, knowing what I know now, I don't feel like, even on a perfect day, I don't feel like I could have caught that. So I had obviously a win in 2 seconds, which is okay, but now you need wins.
It's because you're fishing to come in the top 10.
1. I'm coming in, I'm trying to fish to come in the top 1. But the reality is of winning now.
To qualify for the Parkdean final, though, was it the top 10?
No, top 12.
So
normally, normally the Preston Festival has the 24 qualifiers.
Yeah.
But obviously with COVID, they can't run the Spring Festival. They've just made it the top 12 of each thing. So initially my goal is, how my brain works is I'm there to come in the top 1. That's where I want to be. I'd be lying if I said I wanted anything else. Worst case scenario, if I can't do that, I'd like to be 2nd or 3rd for the reason that Jo, my wife, gets a little trophy.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't believe how much that means to her. I'd give all of the money to just have that to be able to give to her, because then it's made it for her. And then other than that, top 10. After that, if you can qualify, then that's the thing. But no, I'm there to win the festival first and foremost. Again, what I said to you, if you said to me, well, you can finish 2nd of go in the final, or you can win the festival and not fish the final, I'd want to win the festival.
Interesting.
That's what
Very
I
interesting.
want, because it means, that's what it means to me, Matt.
But to qualify for this final that you've won, you had to come in the top 12.
Yes, come in the top 12. Yeah. So back onto my fishing. Day 4, Belingi. Now, Belingi is a place where I get butterflies in the morning.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, but I feel sick a little bit. And the reason being is, not all of the time, but most of the time at Belingi, you can have them in your peg, and every curse word that you've got in your head and new ones are made, honestly, Toby, on the drive back from Belingi, because they swim around your float and they are absolute. But you get it right and they reward you.
Are they clever in there? Is that what you're saying? Like they've seen everything in front of them?
And the thing is so you've got to imagine, when you're normal fishing, you fish on a Saturday, and then you fish on a Sunday, and then they might get a break until Wednesday. If you're on Belingi on the Friday, the Preston Festival, you're on that peg for the 10th day, the 10th 5-hour match in 12 days. And everyone who thinks, I know how to outwit them, they're catchable. Everything's catchable. But they know it. They know.
They're Einstein carp in there, aren't they?
Yeah, and they definitely reward you. And I've had days when I know, the thing is a lot of the time in fishing, all you've got is your best guess. But when you've seen them swimming around your float all day and you can't hook one, you know they're there.
How did your day at Belingi go?
Oh, mate, unreal. So I love, again, points-wise, because that's what it's all about for me, points-wise. My favourite peg at Belingi is peg 20, because I just feel like such a good peg in that section. You've got a mint feeder chuck. And I love fishing a feeder, and it's different there at Belingi. So the way that I fish is totally different. I hold my line. I don't normally use a rod rest. It's all about regular casting, and they mug you off all of the time.
Do they?
Yeah, so I had a mint start, and what was nice there is, again, I don't get to do a lot of rod and line fishing, so on the Sunday I went and had a practice on back Twin Oaks. And when I got there, I always speak to Mike whenever you go there, Andy there, and find out, and they know, they don't even have to ask you, they can just see the size of fish where they've been caught. If they're units, they're normally caught in the edge, and the smaller fish get caught on a feeder. And Mike and Andy know when I go there, that's how I'm going to fish. My bait relates to that. I take mainly micro pellets and a few red maggots. That's it. That's my bait. And that's how I like to fish. That's how I want to fish. So when I've drawn there and it's all a bit overgrown and a bit dodgy, I'm thinking, well, I'm so glad I went and had a practice on 24. Just get me eye in with my casting. And I've chucked out first chuck, holding, sinking my line, thinking, please, please, please. And it's just pulled my line, I've lifted up and I've caught one.
Yes.
And basically, I filled my first 3 nets with like an hour and 15, something like that.
Within an hour and 15?
Yeah,
That's
just on a
bad,
feeder.
Unreal.
Yeah, unreal.
Can someone ring a crane, please?
So I shouted to the lad next to me and he said, I'll phone Mark and get him to bring you some nets round. So Mark's brought 2 more nets round. And there's always an odd net behind you. So I've chucked this one in. Because again, quickly touching on this, there's net rules, but come the end of the week, if you're going to do well, I remember, do you know what? I think I won the festival. I think I did. And I remember Des beating Callum by £4 to come second overall. Callum went over in his nets at Belingi.
So it's always in
every
your
ounce
mind.
Counts. So yeah, I don't go daft with my nets. I go to like £40. There's £60 limit. If you go over 60 to 80, you just go back to 60. If you go over 80, you lose the net. So when I'm fishing, obviously my normal festivals, I make sure I take plenty of nets. I don't go anywhere near it. And they know I'm a bit like that. And Mark said, how many have you got? And I'm like, well, I'm gone to like 40. And he's like, yeah, well, I will see come the end of it, Paul, you nuisance. So he's walked off as such. Anyway, like an hour and a bit later, I phone Mike up and they're building something at the moment. He's like, you're right, Paul, how's it going? I'm like, Mike, I need more nets. And he's like, oh, mate, you're a nightmare. He said, don't worry, I'll get Mark to, send some round. So he's brought some round to me. And he's like, Paul, we've run out of keep nets, so you're going to have to be a bit steady. But with the bait limit, you've got to be very careful. And anyway, I just caught him in the edge after that. But what happened was I had sort of a 40-minute hour where I just couldn't feed enough to get him in my peg because I know I'm just going to run out of bait. And when I could start feeding sort of 100 mil, drop my rig in, it was just one every single
And what did you end up weighing then?
380.
That's not bad going, is it?
So
£380.
Yeah, we're frying.
5 hours.
Just a fair
Christ almighty.
Yeah, and
section win, match win.
Yeah, mint day. Yeah, to be fair, yeah, it was lovely.
That must be one of the biggest weights a year from Belingi, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a few big weights. Callum had, I think, 3. I want to say 332, 338 or 328, something like that.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, we're unreal.
I've just got this image of like people bringing you all these extra nets and somebody sitting there going, who the earth are they for?
Yes.
It's like when you're in a school exam and somebody's finished and you're like, I'm on page 2.
Yeah, it was just unreal. And I remember that because, again, it's the punishing days. You won't see it, but in my brain, I've got a lot of invisible scars. So I cannot tell you how sweet that drive was back from Whiteacres to Belingi. I was just, I've got you to, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a proper victory for me doing well at Belingi.
Good.
So that was mint. And then Match Lake's always the dodgy one where, truthfully, you've got to draw well. I drew a good area.
Following,
yeah. Sorry, Matt. I drew a good area, peg 16 on the high bank. And I was just so pleased to get out of that peg 4 section arm. I draw in that a lot, and it can kill you. That can definitely kill you. You need the rub, and if you're going to win it, that's the sort of rub you need. And one of me subscribers gave me a heads up, and he caught cast a shallow, like a little shallow slim, 4 foot deep, and then he caught a few carp on sort of an 18-inch rig, flicking it about. And again, the conditions were very varied. So at Belingi, wet, windy, and then Match Lake last day, it was sunny, bright, quite calm. So that totally changes the way you're going to fish. A lot of the fish were being caught worms on the bottom. And I started off on a feeder, I caught 2 F1s on that. That one, I was never going to do any good. Went on my pole, caught a few fish on the bottom, but I just knew that I'm going to catch them shallow today. If I'm going to do any good, I'm going to catch a few shallow and casters or with worms on the hook. And I've done that and had a good little run doing it. And then around you gets wind of it and they start doing it. And you want to be a bit to your right, to be honest, just where it widens up a little bit. But fortunately enough, I had a good late run on a waggler. I just edged my bets a little bit. I took 2 units of 8 mils with me and I never fed them. And I just saved them. And in the hope that nobody else had taken any. And late on I caught 3 or 4 F1s. And I couldn't do it for the wind. And I know the wind would have allowed me, because I've had a few good days on like 27, 28, 26. And then big, clever, old wise ones, the ones that have been in there forever, they're there, especially in them areas. But the only way you can seem to catch them is sort of like 4 foot on a waggler. And when you can fish right for them, they're there.
And you mugged a few off on that very late on?
And it was just the wind wouldn't let me do it properly. But I caught a few on it.
Yeah.
And I think I had 61, 62 pound. I think about 48 pound was second. So it just helped me. And
Fantastic,
that meant
mate.
that I finished. Andy Powers won the festival, 5 perfect, 5 straight section wins. I was never going to win that. And then I think Jason Hale was second. He had 4 wins and a second. And then I had 3 wins and 2 seconds, so it meant I was third overall.
Well done, mate.
So
and in the final.
Yeah.
And Joe got a little trophy.
I was made up with that. You wouldn't believe how happy it makes her to have a
Brilliant.
little trophy.
Where does she put them all?
On a chest of drawers bit. Do you know what I mean? She's got one of them.
That's
nice
lovely,
wide.
that.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's just
it's a big chest of drawers in it. Must be able to take a good weight.
There's a couple on there now. Like I want a lot more. So. But yeah, it was weird. So obviously that was the end of it for me. Now normally it's a weekend off, sort my kit out onto the Preston. So
but obviously this time,
I knew I'd qualified.
Yeah,
I've got a week to sort of prepare and think about it.
And did that make it any different, Paul?
It made a massive
for anyone
difference.
listening, normally the Parkdean final comes after the Preston
after
festival.
the festival, yeah.
So you've had 5 days fishing. And it gets to Friday night, and Saturday is your final, so you have no real time.
Oh,
to...
just straight into it.
That's how it normally is.
Wow.
But obviously this year, with a new format, you've basically fished a festival, qualified for the final, gone all the way back home, which is how far is Whiteacres for you?
240 miles, something like that.
5 hours?
Yeah.
5 hours at home.
Yeah.
You've got a week to chill out, relax, whatever.
Do my stuff, yeah.
Get sorted. How did it make the final any different to how it's been the previous 7 years that you've been
in it?
It
made a massive difference because normally on the Maber Festival, Jenny's is in. So you all get a rough idea of what's going on in terms of, the 5-hour matches obviously in the festival, but Jenny's wasn't in on either the Maber or the Preston. So nobody knew what it was going to be like. So the only thing you had to really go on was past experience.
And you've got a strong background of that, haven't you?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a weird one, and I'd like to say this because I think it'd make it understand how I felt at the end of it, it make it understand it a little bit. So again, talking about how emotionally involved I am at times, the final has never been kind to me. I've never really caught a great deal, never really felt like I was in it. And to have to drive a long way, obviously drive there the day before, to something that truthfully was I'm looking forward to it, probably not. Don't get me wrong,
It's
I
honest,
prepared,
mate,
I've done my
past
gear
experience.
based on past experience, and I said to Joe I was being a bit pissy is the best way of me putting it. I get a bit like that because truthfully the matches where I've been going on at Gold, you get a load of space. I'm loving the fishing. I'm doing rod and line fishing. It's like,
and you've been doing really well, let me add, because I see your results. I follow you everywhere.
But I love the fishing, Matt, and that's the thing for me. Like, so when it's right for me, Joe knows because she'll ask me something and I'll be like,
Joe, of course, by everyone, is Paul's missus.
my wife. So she'll ask me something and I just say yeah and no and hope I get them in the right places. But so when
Paul, are you coming up to the bedroom? No.
When I'm on something, my mind, all I think about before I go to bed is that, and as soon as I wake up, that's all I'm thinking about. I can't get it out. I can't disconnect from it. So when she's talking to me and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good, she's like, do you know what I mean? Like, this ain't right. Like, somebody stolen Paul, So when obviously driving down there at the crack of dawn, chucking it down with rain, it'd not been a great week weather-wise. And I was saying to her, I really got to do this. And then I have got to do it because of my match focus and my subscribers, stop being a pissy, Like,
and to put everyone straight, match focus, when we reference that, that's what you do for a living now. It's basically a channel where you do videos weekly.
Yes.
All about your fishing, what you're doing, helping other people. And
I want people to grow, Yeah,
because you've referenced your subscribers a few times. I just want everyone who's listening, they're the people who subscribe to Match Focus, your channel that you... And we can talk a little bit more about it. I just wanted everyone to know what it was.
Mate. So it's sort of, Joe said to me a bit like, she has to knock me down a peg or two, but when you live in your own world, you don't see it like that. She's like, look, some people haven't qualified for a final, what you're moaning about is somebody else's dream. And
she's right.
Yeah, proper. And you sort of need that. So I said to her, like, look, you're dead right. she knows me better than anyone else, and she can nip me in the bud when I'm getting a bit. I don't mean it in a nasty. I'm not a nasty person, but if I get a bit sort of in my own little bubble in my head, I can get a bit like that. So I said to her, look, right, so what we're going to do, no matter what, wherever I draw, I'm telling you now, if I can win my section, I'm going to be happy with that. Now, in the past, I've said, if I can do this, I'll be happy with that. I achieve that, and then I go back miserable because I wanted to do better. So we said, like, and she said, I'm going to remind you that. And I was like, the only time I say is if I feel like I could have won and I didn't, and I made the mistakes as such, then obviously, and she knew that. So we've gone down there, got there, had a little wander around. Obviously, you're not allowed to practice because it'd be unfair for, other people as such. You would have been able to, not the Thursday or the Friday. So if you went down there early on in the week, you would have done. Had a little watch of the match that was going on Python as such, and then went back, stopped away as such. And then, had a wander around and picked my pegs. Oh, I'd love to, the wind sort of blowing up to the 20s end. Been on 20, that's the end peg. I've been there, in a few festivals and done well, caught some carp. Obviously had a look at pegs where people have won from. Obviously where Des won it from 44. Where else? In the 16 sort of area bit as well, where Brad Hancock won it from last year. I watched that final.
What peg were Brad on?
I'm trying to think now. I don't know. It's basically opposite peg 16.
Ah, right.
So you've got 2 points of
on
an
the
island.
Bank.
Yeah. He sort of 15 got that point of the island. 16 sort of got the area out and the other point of the island.
Got you.
So he's chucking to that sort of point of the island. So yeah, had a sort of wander around, and you get them pegs in your head. Oh yeah, that looks right. Peg 9's an end, so you've got some edge fish maybe. Peg 15 look good because again you've got some carp to the island. You've got the potential of edge fish.
This is all Jenny's Lake.
Yeah, but the thing is, you never had that. What happened last week? Also, and again, meat's not allowed. It's only allowed in your festivals. And the meat is a brilliant bait on Jenny's, but they tune into it dead quick. But it hadn't been fed, so you had that going on in your mind as well.
And was you allowed to fish meat?
Yeah,
in the
you're allowed
final?
to fish in the final because part of obviously the festivals, but it's only what I would say the 5 main festivals where you're allowed it. In the other smaller festivals, I don't think you're allowed it. You're only allowed meat in the main, like the Frenzy, Dynamite, Guru, Maver, Preston festivals. So that was sort of going on in my mind. So it was weird, obviously waiting there to do all the draw and stuff, and it was weird how it was totally different for me because I wasn't in that festival format for one, where the festivals as such, and I had that week to think about it, and I was almost, for the first time ever, it didn't matter. In my mind, if I went there and blanked, I would have drove home with a smile on my face because I almost accepted the fact of what could potentially happen as such. So anyway, I've gone up, drawn my peg, and I've drawn, and I tell you, this is weird. So,
don't tease me. Where did you draw?
Oh, sorry, I drew peg 19. So this is a weird one. I'm not a sort of superstitious person, but my missus, and her mum, they're a nightmare. Like they rub the Buddha. They've got this certain thing that they do. So she said to me, "Where do you want to draw?" And I said 15. And she had this black salt stuff. And she sort of shook it over my head, and I'm thinking, whatever it is.
Is she a witch or something?
Yeah, she's a bit like that. She's got this black salt stuff. So before I went to draw,
you tried it on your ground bait?
No. Well, after this, I wouldn't even use it on that. I wouldn't even waste it. So yeah, she's like, I'll give you a bit more, just for some more luck. So when I've walked up, there was one that sort of looked at me, and I've picked it up, 19, and I'm thinking, I didn't want to draw there because I want to be 20 because I know how good that peg can be. So it's a bit of a initial in my mind. Again, it's not like, I've got a right chance there. Do you know what I mean? That initial, your gut reaction thing. But this is the weirdest thing about fishing, and why, again, looking at other finals that I've been in, you never quite know. Not finals that I've been in myself as such, but finals that I've been part of, obviously watching Andy in a few fish shows. The second one, if I'd have said to him, right, you're going to win this, he would have said to me, well, I'll have £1 million with you that I won't. You were that sure, and you just don't know sometimes.
It's fishing.
So it's fishing, yeah, and that's the one thing. When you see things like that, and Jo always says to me, because again, she knows a bit about fishing from what I say, and she's like, where do you want to draw? And I'll be like, there. And it never wins. And she says to me, wherever you lot think you're going to draw, you're worse than women, you lot. You think it's going to be this, that, and the rest of it, and you're absolutely clueless. It never comes from there. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting told here, sort of thing. So anyway, we've had a wander up, took me rods round, and straight away, you can just see it's alive with fish. There's fish ripping the bottom up, just pimping everywhere. As it's getting warmer, the carp bow waving about, knowing that 20's the end, it's like, this could be a thing, you know.
So straight away you're thinking, could catch, could win.
I couldn't, no, forget about the winning. I want to get some bites.
Right.
I just want to feel like I can catch some fish, you know. So I'm looking, thinking I'm going to get some bites there. So it's a narrow chuck there. So I've got the short chuck of the island, and I know the right-hand side's slightly better because obviously in past when I've been on 20. But then I'm relying a bit on what Peg 20 wants to do because I want my own water. So I've waited to see where Russ clipped up. Russ Grimes.
On 20.
Russ Grimes was to my right.
Right.
Cyborn was to my left on 18. So I've seen where Russ has chucked as such, and I'm thinking, right, I can fish where I want to fish, slightly to my right on the island. So I've got that. I'm going to fish a method. Again, pellet feeder, method feeder. What's awkward with Jenny's is basically you're either fishing for carp or you're fishing for carassios. So the corners of the islands tend to be better for carp. The open water tends to be better for carassios. On the pole, you're either fishing for carp or you're fishing for carassios. So you've got to make that sort of choice. But the fact that I've got the island and I know, again, if I can catch carp, I don't need to catch as many. I've done well in the past. So that I'm happy. I can fish my method. And that's how, personally, if I can fish like that, I'm doing everything that I want to fish, the way that I like to fish. So I'm dead happy with that. And then what do I do on the pole line? Because there's carp buzzing around. And again, from past experience, I remember when Andy Levers won it, you know, he caught sort of 5 or 6 carp dead quick early on the pole. And it was all over before it started.
Damage done. Yeah.
Now, again, in a normal match, it's 5 hours. That's not. It's 4 hours. So I'll touch on this in a bit because I carry on. So, it's basically 4 hours. So knowing how other people have won it, predominantly, it's been won on a feeder. So this is the perfect way to explain it now, I think. So when you fish, the way that I fish, section points, I've got this setup, I've got that setup. I'll just do this just in case. I'll flick a bit of bait there just in case with 20 minutes to go I need a bite or two. Because you're there for a point. A point in a festival is the difference between winning and losing, and it's ounces at times. Trust me, I've felt the ounces. It hurts. So you've had 2 weeks, 10 days of points, and that's how genuinely I want to fish. Then you've got to fish a 4-hour match where it's only the last 2 years, I think, where the section prizes, where one person's happy, 23 are going home with 0.
It's basically a winner-take-all final, isn't it?
Yeah. So in the past, I've gone there because it's points, excuse me, in my head. So then all of a sudden, you just go, no, I ain't doing that. I'm just going to fish a feeder. And I remember speaking to Andy when I was next to him, and this is what I mean, how much you learn, you know. And he's like, well, I ain't doing that.
Who's this Andy?
Gelder. He's like, I ain't doing that. I ain't going to win to it. And I'm thinking, well, you might do. It's 4 hours. I'm going to do this. If that works, I've got a chance of winning it. I don't have that mentality. I can't go there and just say, well, that's all I'm doing. If I win, great. If I don't, I don't. Because I'd be coming home thinking, yeah, but if you just set that up, you might. So the section, how you're made up in your mind about the way you like fishing. Some people, like I referenced, you know, William and Andy Bennett, they just want to set up what they feel like is going to win. That suits them. I'm a bit more like Des, I would say. Cover it all and sort of, you know, feel your way into it. Such. That's how I like to fish. So I would say in the past, even looking back now, I never felt like I had a chance to win it, but I could have caught more. Because you've got to change your mindset from, you ain't there to win your section, you're there to try and win the match. And the only way you're going to win the match in the past normally has been Grant and Adam. Definitely Grant. Adam caught, I think, some shallow on the pole, caught carassios. Des won it once fishing a feeder into open water. Andy Gelder won it on the point of the island fishing a method. Bradley won it on a feeder. And then you had
Lee Kerry
caught carp, pole with worms and pellets, I think. Andy Levers in that similar area.
Kevin Wedge,
paste and corn. There's obviously fishing worms in open water, like in years gone by as such. But in recent form, I would say it's been a predominant feeder match.
Agree.
And then a few carp on the pole. So what I'm looking at my peg, I've got my feeder chuck. I know I went off a bit of tangent there as such. But what do I do on the pole? Now, it's looking like I need to fish for carp, but it's different because it's flat. It's flat calm. Now, anyone who goes to Cornwall knows that it's never flat calm.
Never,
very,
ever.
very rare is it flat calm. But catching these Carassios, they're a nightmare. They're difficult to catch. And it looked bang on for that as well. So again, no one's got any experience, so nobody really knows. Will the carp going to feed or the Carassio's going to feed?
Because no one's fished it,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, right, well, I set up both on my long pole just so I got it covered, and I sort of feel my way into it. And then I set an edge rig up because Russ is only ever going to fish to his right. I've got to my right as such. And then I'm just going to throw some meat short. In the past, I fished worms there, but it's too negative. I'm just going to throw some meat. And that's my plan as such. So at the all-in, ready, waiting, I don't know whether to start on the pole or whether to chuck my method. So I'm thinking, history has shown that the method's going to, my feeder, if I'm going to win it, that's probably how I'm going to win it. So I thought, right, I'll just feed like 150 micros on my long pole line, and then I'll chuck my method out. So I've done that, chuck my method out, hold my line, thinking, please pull my line, put my rod down, no bites. And sort of 2.5 minutes, and I've looked up, and they're fizzing where I fed them micros. And I'm like, there's carp on my bait there.
On the pole?
I know they're there, yeah. Because you can just
and
tell
how far
it's so
out
soft.
had you fished them?
I've just fished 14 with a short 4 in.
Right.
So I've got the option of going further, basically, if I overcook my peg as such. And I'm like, they're there. So I've wound in, but deep down in my mind, I'm thinking of this method. Because again, I've been on 20, and when they rock up on it, there ain't no easier way of catching a bigger weight than fishing
on the method feeder.
Yeah, because they hook themselves. You're using gear where you're probably not going to get snapped. It's just the easiest way of being able to catch a big weight. So I'm thinking, right, I'll have another chuck on my method. So I've chucked it out, thinking, come on, just pull my line. So you're making it easy decision-wise, and pulled the line. So I'm thinking, right, I've got to have a look on this pole, because again, bearing in mind what happened with Andy, I could go in, bump, and it's over before it started. But it's all gambles. No, I'm sort of winging it. I don't know. Like, a lot of what I do is based on sort of maybe even a target, a rough guide. I've got none of that. No one has. So I've just put sort of 150 micros again in my pot, shipped out, fed it, a whole worm on my hook, basically smacked it on the water, stunned it, load of float out of the water. Because that lake is one or two. You either fish like that or you fish paste. I'm not an avid paste user, so that's how I want to fish. So I've shipped out, dropped my float in. Again, holding the pole, just go under and be like 15 pounds. Just give me a
how
mint
long
start.
in is this? How long into the match is this?
Not long.
15 minutes?
Yeah, less than 15 minutes. I've only had 2 chucks on my feeder. Probably 8-10 minutes maybe. So I've gone out, my float's giving it like an odd little, and I'm like, come on, just go under. Stop teasing me. And then all of a sudden, yeah, and there no more. And I've nailed it as hard as I could. So I've whacked it, and I've caught a little carp, like £4.
Nice.
But it was like, yes, I've hooked one, and I've got something in the net now.
I'm
up and running, cooking on gas as such. So I've gone out, potted it again, odd little.
Same amount, 100.
Yeah,
150.
150. Yeah, it seems like you have to feed a volume to get one in your peg. You try feeding like in a large pot's worth, large guru or something, you just won't get one in your peg. Just like in the edge, just the more you feed, almost the better it is. You've got to get them in your peg fizzing up, and then they're on it rooting your big hook bait. Hopefully they're in there like a big dice and sucking the lot up. You nail it, which is the same equivalent to paste. Why paste works well on that lake? Because the bottom's dead soft. I think when they cloud it up, they just can't see nothing. So a great big lump of something stinks,
big
soft.
worm or a big piece of paste.
Yeah, it's just something they can suck in. So I've gone out, potted it again, dropped my rig in. It never went under, but I had a few little dips, So left it, fizzing stop, come back in, potted it again, dropped my rig in. Eventually it's gone under, and I caught a carp, about £5. But when this ain't right, they're buzzing around, like they're milling around, but they don't want to go. When I say they don't want to go down, I'm only fishing, it's only like 3.5 foot. Jenny's dead shallow lake. But it don't feel right to me. And I'm worried now because I'm sort of half an hour into the match. And yes, I've caught 2 fish, but I'm not going to line them up on this. That's how it feels to me. And I'm worried that I haven't been casting my method. And I'm thinking, you idiot, if you'd have fished that method, you'd have probably caught 2 on this by now, but you'd have had bait in your peg.
Yeah, because you'd be casting all the time, building up your swim, up against the island.
And the thing is, where it's dead narrow where I am, I was frightened of overcooking my peg. Now, a lot of the time with that feeder, it's about getting them in your peg, if there's another milling around. And I just looked, and it looked bang on. I'd feed me peg either loose feed or with a big feeder. And it looked just bang on for me to be able to like loose feed 6mm pellets. I think the smaller the pellet, the more attractive, the more volume of bait you feed in, the smaller particles you just get fish milling around. And I'm thinking in my head, I want to start loose feeding this.
Against the island?
Against the island. I want to do this, and this sort of after half an hour. And to be honest, I'm worried about cooking it because I just feel like that's my best chance of getting a run of fish. It's flat calm. It don't feel like I'm going to line them up. So I've had a few chucks, and then I've chucked out, holding my line, and it's pulled my line. I've caught one. So it's like, yes, I've got one on that feeder now. So straight away, I'm a lot more confident. I've had a few more chucks, and my casting was going well, and then I've chucked out. I think I might have caught another 1 or 2 on it. And then I've picked up, and I'm snagged solid because it's sort of on this bend bit, and there's an odd tree root as such. But you've got to be in the right little spot. And I remember when I was on 20, I got snagged a few times to pull for a break, so I had to set my feeder up again. Chucked it back out, and I just remember to the point where...
So you had to set a feeder up again mid-match? You had to redo it?
Yeah.
You don't mind that?
It would have bothered me in the past, but it don't bother me one bit now.
Brilliant.
I'm not bothered. Because I did have my other rod set up with a pellet feeder on it. Again, because I know it works, but it's not how I want to fish. For me to get broke on what I use takes some breaking, to be honest. You don't get broke, but that's because the feeder's snagged solid. It's not my hook length snagged. My hook length was snagged. I'd pull and my hook length would snap. There's no way my main line's snapping. No chance.
Like it.
So it happens, you know. So it's one of them. I just literally...
Don't let it bother you. No. Don't let it fluster you.
So up until this point, say we're an hour and 20 into the match, I don't know what I should be doing on this long pole. So I'm flicking a few pellets on it just to more keep it topped up. I don't feel like I want a big pot here if I'm not on it. Because I'm dragging fish in my peg and I don't know it don't feel right doing that. So I'm just flicking a few pellets on it, sort of keeping it ticked over, sort of feeling my way into it. And after an hour and 20 minutes, it's like, what are you doing? Just do what you think's right, man. So I've just thought, that's it now. I'm just feeding that feeder line because it's everything in my mind is telling me what to do. And so I fed me pellets on my feeder line. First chuck, no bites. Wound in after sort of 3.5 minutes. And before I wound in, I fed 2 big parafuls of 6mm. So that way, when I chuck out, holding my line, caught one. And just immediately, it was totally different now. In my mind, I knew that whatever these carp are milling around, I'm going to get them in my peg, and I will get a run of doing it. So what that done then was freed me up decision-wise, because in my mind, I had it that's it now. I'm just fishing a feeder. I know what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start feeding that pole line with 4 mils. I'm just going to be more aggressive on it. I've always got the option of chucking a bomb over it, fish a whole worm over it. It's given me the option of catching shallow on it. But what I'm going to be doing now, I'm just going to be fishing this feeder. And I had an odd bite doing it, to be honest. I wasn't setting the world alight, but with the conditions, I was doing as well as I'd expected to do.
But we actually catching odd carp on it?
Yeah, just an odd carp, basically.
On a method feeder?
On a method, yeah, just 1 to 3 dead red maggots, 14 guys, and that's the hook for that.
And what did you have on your feeder? Micros, ground bait?
Micros, mainly. I did try ground bait. I caught 1 or 2 on it, but because it's more the conditions. I don't feel like... You know, maybe if I'd have set my other chuck rod up, you know, and put 2 or 3 big feeders out with ground bait, but I don't feel like that was going to have that sort of effect on it. I just felt like loose feeding was going to be the way. So, yeah, anyway, 2 hours into my match, and I'm feeding my pole line, and I'm happy, you know. I felt like I made the right choice. Now I'm settled. I feel like I know what I need to do. And my feeder's going all right, and I don't feel like I'm going to get a run out, but I feel like I will just get odd bites. It's not going to be one of them days where I go in and catch 10 in 10. It's not going to happen like that. The conditions are all wrong. It's flat calm. So anyway, after about 2 hours, I don't know the time exactly, so I'm just in my own little world fishing. And to be brutally honest, I'm just happy I'm getting a few bites. I'm doing all right, looking around. And I feel like I'm catching some. I've not been in that position very often, to be honest.
Especially in that final. Especially
in that final, exactly. So I fed my pellets, and I picked some more pellets up to go and feed them. And I've seen some in the water. What a fish never tops. It never like a proper vortex, but there was some there. Just the tiniest little summit on the water. And when it's like a mill pond, and these Carassios, they're not like F1s. So, again, I'll talk about this at the end, but a twist of fate would have it. I've never done well. I will talk about it now because it's in my head.
Yeah, go on.
But basically, talking about practice. So the year before, Python was a new lake. I went down to deliberately practice that lake, and I always try and practice my casting on one day. I always deliberately go and practice, just getting my eye in. I'm not worried about what I'm catching. But I know how I can cast when I don't have to think about it, when I'm confident. You could put a little hole and say, here's a rod, here's your rod and your feeder. I don't think I'll be able to do it with anything. But with my gear, and said, that's that hole, I'll give you 1,500 quid if you can chuck it in. And I say, give it to me, watch me. Because I know I can't miss. And that's what you need. And that only comes through repetition. Once you've done something. So when I go down, I always go and just practice my casting. Just so I know.
One of your practice days. One at like Saturday or
Sunday. Yeah, I'll always have a few hours just getting me eye in with it. And so anyway, I went there to fish Python. Python was shut. You weren't allowed to fish it. So I went on Jenny's, went on Peg 9 just to get me eye in. And I've never really caught these Carassios on that lake, and it's normally because it's pellets as such. So Andy's come down. Obviously, Andy's my sharing partner.
Andy Bennett.
Yeah, unreal. And he's done well, obviously, fishing on that lake with Carassios. So once we're having a mess around on my feeder lines, you know what I mean, just both catching a few, he's gone, here, get your pole out and we'll catch some of them Carassios, you know what I mean? I'll show you what it's like, because they don't pull your elastic out. And within literally 5 minutes, I've gone from clueless to I know exactly where I've been going wrong. Now, when you're fishing for F1s, a lot of the time it's all about creating a tight line. You don't slap your rig and you're trying to lift up on a bite. If you get it right, you should hook. They should self-hook most of them. Because with Carassios, they're not like that. You have to slap your rig. You have to use little light rigs as well. But they don't pull your elastic out.
You have to do the striking.
Yeah, you have to strike. And watching little light dibber rigs, little light strung out rigs as such, what was good. And I knew exactly what I needed to do. And that just installed that, even though I've never done it before in the past. Now, again, what helped me was going and fishing the middle lake all summer. Or not all summer, but I've had a lot of matches where normally my F1 fishing is based around maggots and casters. Not
You're talking about middle lake gold. Yeah.
Because there's newer stocked F1s, they just eat 4 mil pellets. So again, the confidence level of doing that has just gone through the roof. Whereas normally when I fish pellet shallow, I'd rather be fishing casters shallow, because I know if I get them in my peg, when you're fishing shallow, if you can get the fish competing for your bait, they're the easiest fish in the world to catch. And the hardest thing is getting them eating the bait. And a lot of the time, I'd say, normally, if they're not new F1s and they're not Carassios, maggots and casters are the bait, because they just like eating them.
For some reason, Carassios love 4 mil pellets.
They just want to eat 4 mil pellets and corn. It's just what they like eating.
So years before, you've had this sort of Carassio practice session with Bagger.
Yeah, I had it the year before.
The year before?
The year before this final was such, because I weren't in it last year. So, yeah, anyway, back onto my match. And so I thought...
You've seen something move?
Yeah, seen something in my move, my peg. So I shipped my rig out, slapped my rig, and that was the end of it.
Carassio?
Yeah, I just caught one at every single chuck.
Carassios?
Yeah, I caught 2 carp doing it. But I just felt so in tune. I knew what to do and I knew how to catch them. The slapping in my rig was good. Me elastic, I opted to fish white rather than... I did put some oranges in because they don't fight. But there was an odd carp milling around, so I opted to fish white at the start. And don't get me wrong, it was all right. It would have been nicer to be able to use something slightly softer. And I'd say that was my match. That's all I remember. And then 10 minutes to go, I had sort of 5, maybe 8 minutes to go. I had 5 minutes where I never had a bite. Dropped in short on me because there was an odd pimp. Never caught one. I did have one look short on me in between my feeder chucks before I went on my pole line shallow. And I caught a skimmer. I just carried on flicking a bit of meat there. And then, yeah, basically... I shipped my rig out and then they called all out. And do you know, the weirdest thing about it is afterwards, so it's like all out, I was shipping my pole back, there's a few people opposite, they're all doing clapping, and I'm thinking, oh, fair play, someone's done all right. I'm just buzzing because I caught a few.
So at what point, any point during this match, did you think, I've won this?
No, I don't even know what I'd caught.
Really?
No, not even had a clue. And
Why not? Why had you not kept
I'll tell
in
you
tabs
why.
with it?
So my second or third carp that I caught, this carp was like a distraction to me all day. And I'm not exaggerating when it tried to jump out of my net 30 times. No. And I remember reading Mikey Williams' post last year. He had one 10-pound jump out of his net, cost him.
In the final?
Yeah. It might have even been the second carp that I caught. and it tried to do it all day long. So every fish that I've hooked, I'm netting it, and I've got to take my landing net out of my keep net, and I don't have it like that. I'm trying to take my landing net out of my keep net, net the fish, unhook it to get my landing net back in the keep net, so this thing can't jump out. So I'm trying to wedge it in, and it's just distracted me all day long. So after the match, I'm shipping back thinking, I need to sort my nets out, because I've managed to keep it in there all day. I don't want it jumping out. And it's been like probably a blessing in disguise, because even when I'm catching my Carasio, I've sort of changed my net more out of interest to see what I would have caught or such. So I put like 2 or 3 Carasio in this, and then just started them in the other net. So after the match, I'm thinking, right, well, I'm shipping back, and I know people are going to walk past, so I need to sort my pole out, but I need to get this sorted. So I'm putting my rig down, and then Callum's just come and grabbed me.
Callum Dix?
Yeah. Obviously, I've known Callum for years.
Yeah.
I love him to death. He's come and like squeezed the life out of me, because he's a bit like, you, Robbie, he's strong, ain't he? Do you know what I mean?
Strong, Max support.
Yeah, and I'm like,
no one's ever called me strong ever before. Thanks, Paul.
Listen,
I've
been grabbed hold of, and I know, and he's like squeezing me, and like sometimes when you and he's like, and you're grabbing it, like, I'm like, Callum, you're squeezing me lungs, man. And he was like, mate, that was unreal. And I'm like, unreal? What are you even on about? Like, I was completely oblivious. So I'm thinking, oh, I might have done all right type thing. Callum's obviously seen a few people. I've just been in my own little bubble. So I'm sorting my pole out, because I don't want it to get trodden on, because I know what it's like. It's like a stampede afterwards at times. But it's this net where I need to get it onto the ground, so I know you can be super carp, you not jumping out, there's no chance. So I'm moving Carasio net, because that's absolutely fine, and I'm moving this net, and sometimes one of my rings can obviously, because they're weighted, it can fall forward a bit as such, especially if you had a carp thrash, and then it's because it's shallow in the edge. It's not like it's dead deep where it couldn't, obviously the weight can just slope away from itself. So I'm pulling my net out, making sure that everything's all right. Obviously I want to give them space and that as well. So I'm lifting it. I'm like, come on. Do you know what I mean? It's thrashing around. I'm like, you're doing my nut. Oh, sorry, I moved close to the speaker. You're doing my nutting, you carp.
I bet you didn't really say that.
No, I didn't. And then when I've lifted it, I'm like, God, there's a bit more in there. I thought I had about 30, 35 pounds. Now, anyone who's followed me for a bit knows net limits are not my thing. I do not like net limits, because I get more worried about what I have caught rather than trying to catch the fish.
Yeah.
So as it turns out in the final, you could have caught every fish in the lake and had 2 nets, because that's the rule. 2 nets, split your fish, done that. You could have had £500. It's not
brilliant room for a final, in my
perfect,
opinion.
because it's one less thing to worry about. Now, I totally get it for the fish safety side of it. You don't want too many fish in the net.
But realistically, 4 hours,
perfect.
what you're going to catch.
Absolutely perfect, exactly. So, yeah, the way the scales come down sort of thing. And Callum said, what you got? Do you reckon you got like 60, 70 pound? And I'm like, I don't know, Cal, to be honest. I ain't got a clue. I never have a clue. That's the real, unless there's a net limit, and then but even then I don't have a clue, because I think, right, well, I've got £30 in that net, £30 in that net, £30 in that net, and one weighs 40 something, one weighs 22, and the other weighs 40 odd. I'm just rubbish with it. I've always been, because all I want to do is, as soon as I've done that, that's the past, irrelevant. I want to hook another one. I want to. That's how I am, sort of thing. So yeah, come and weighed me in. I had £105, and I was like, "Oh, that's sort of a
strap it." And after the weigh-in, any idea you'd won? Were anything sinking in? When at any point did you think that's going to be enough?
No.
Surely people were patting you on back.
Yeah,
saying,
obviously they're all saying well done, but Joe's not there, and I know what she's like until every single ounce is
added up.
Yeah.
And done. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was weird, because like it was just, from a personal point of view, obviously when I found out I'd won as such, it was a bit like, well, yeah, I can, like everyone I've been so very fortunate in my life to have been surrounded by not just the best anglers in the UK, I'm talking the best anglers in the world. I spent a long time with William, and when you've got him telling you, it'll happen, mate, it'll happen, do you know what I mean? It's only a matter of time. And they've invested, like William and Andy,
Will
a lot,
Raisin, Andy Bennett. Yeah.
They've invested a lot not that anyone would ever know, but the amount they've invested into me, their own time, their own effort, their own money, you know. Again, there's other people quickly touching on this. Like Mark Eve sponsored me for a long time when I couldn't afford to go.
Team South.
Yeah,
Love him to bits.
exactly. Like
Love to have him on podcast, Mark.
Unreal.
He'd do a good one, wouldn't he?
He's unreal. The nicest human you'll ever meet. Tommy Hillier, he was another one who invested.
Great
guy. I
guy.
could speak to Tom for like 3 hours on the phone if I had a problem about something. And that's just a few. Obviously, I spent a lot of time with Des as well. You know, he helped me when so when those type of people, they're not your average people saying, like, when your mum says, oh, you'll do well. Well, it's your mum. Of course she's going to say
it.
it.
Yeah.
And when your missus is telling you, you know, it'll happen, you know. She
like,
gives me, like, little motivational cards every
Mum,
day.
you have
Today's a new day. You're going to capture the world.
Fortune cookie.
Yeah, exactly.
Mum, when have you ever fished 16 metre shallow? You ain't got a clue.
But when you have those type of people telling you, it'll happen, and you go and you don't get a chance, and you go and you don't get a chance, and you go and it don't happen. There ain't a human alive that believes. So I remember when, obviously, with Will's podcast a bit, you know, when he said, well, when you win it, that's it, the reality. When it's you, it's like, oh yeah, well, given a chance, you know, I'm happy with that. It was weird because I felt kind of guilty, Matt, about how I thought it would feel. I've won the Parkdean Masters. Like, I've won, like, how I felt when I'd won not my first White Eggs Festival, because I still said to Joe, yeah, but that's a fluke. It don't really matter until I win 2. And she's like, yeah, that's typical you, innit? You said you wanted to win 1. Now you've won 1. You've made an excuse of why that ain't good enough, and you've got to win 2. But luckily, it come on the next festival. So,
Brilliant.
But when I won that, I felt good about being me. My personal, in my mind, the hardest well done is the well done you give yourself. I give myself, Paul, I'm chuffed for you. With this, I thought it'd feel like that, but it didn't, because for
How did
me,
it feel? Can you explain it? Is there any way of explaining it?
It felt like, initially, when obviously now I know I've won, it was emotion. It was. I was buzzing when I see Jo, because she was sore. It might be a bit bad now, but
It's mate, it's nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've got a picture of you and her together.
when I see
We
her
got it, Tobe.
upset,
There.
yeah,
Look at
It's a
her.
lovely picture, that.
yeah.
When was that, Paul? Is that straight after March?
Yeah.
So that's the moment. That's when it proper sunk in.
Yeah.
You should be proud, mate. You should be proud. They're happy tears.
It's the
Awesome.
smiles, mate. They were just
Yeah.
both of you just look buzzing. It's just such a lovely picture, mate.
Seeing her happy is
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up of when it sank in for you.
yeah.
Absolutely awesome.
That was the thing, like literally seeing her, because she sees the worst of me, literally. Yeah.
Bless her.
See how happy she was. Like she made up.
Absolutely fantastic. I always remember coming to White Acres, and I'm sure it was Jo and her mum.
Yeah. Oh, her
And
mum's
they made
fanatical.
the biggest
frightening.
screams when you go up.
If someone said a bad word to me in front of her mum, she would knock them clean out. Honestly, she's so like, and that's what I mean. So for me, I want to do well for my personal reasons, but I know the support I get, and that for me to see them, that was like,
You should be really
I've done
proud,
it for
mate.
them. And it was weird because for me, for like, from my own personal point of view, because again, I'm sort of emotional type of dude, you know, because fishing's my life, I try not to get too emotionally involved. So afterwards, again, because I never expected it, afterwards, it was like, well, I won, you know, that was nice. And when I see her coming up proper, like, you know,
Was Jo crying when you'd won?
oh yeah.
She was.
And that's why it's obviously upset me, because I can
I'd love
picture
to have seen
her.
it. I don't mean it because you're all crying, but I'd love to have seen it because
It's been a special moment.
Yeah, really nice.
do you know how we started the podcast? 14 or 15 years ago in White Acres.
She supported me.
4 festival wins, 8 finals, and a lot of not so good results.
Yeah.
And she's been by your side, and she's seen you down. She's seen you.
Yeah.
You've talked about you. Even when you have bad matches, you look to get better. You look to grow. You must have I know you've put an awful lot of time and effort into the matches that haven't been so good to get you better. And then this for her and you
seeing
together must be like a not a payoff, but a reward. Like it's happened. It's happened.
It's happened. Yeah.
You're the you are the Parkdean Masters champion. Yeah. And she's been by your side pretty much all of that.
Do you know what? It's weird. I knew if you mentioned how was Joe, I knew that I'd go because
it's brilliant.
She's my world basically. Yeah.
Can I just? Am I right in saying you broke the record? You're the only person to win that final over £100. Is that right?
Yeah.
Have some of that.
So what a way to do it.
Yeah, it was not. But again,
he didn't know he'd got £100 at the end of the match.
Yeah,
I
could have had £200. Who knows? But yeah, so when I see her, that's when it hit me.
Yeah.
And that bit I'll never forget because I've made her proud. And I think that's the thing. For me, fishing, I'm very, very fortunate, Matt, that I wake up every day doing what I want to do. So I've got my life the way I want it to be, if that makes sense. So yeah, afterwards, and obviously doing the ceremony side of it, it was a bit like, I wanted it to feel personally for me, if Joe wasn't there, there is no emotion as daft as that is. I'm happy. I'm happy that I've won. I'm happy that I've got over the line. To see her like that, well, you sing from me. Do you know what I mean? Like, she literally is my world. But when it's sort of, again, like the whole, this is I don't know how to say it, like the jumping in thing. I always said if I ever won one, that ain't me. I'm not that type of dude.
The celebrator, a run up, dive in the lake.
I don't like that, me, Matt.
Why not?
You've won. What, winning's just enough. And I think fishing for me is my life. And at times, fishing's brilliant because we have the social element. But top flight fishing, that is a bit noddy. You don't see Tiger Woods going and running and jumping in the 18th hole. You know, you don't see it. And I'd like to see that professional side of it. You know, fishing is my life, and I'd like to see it on par. And I think until, you know, that's
Can I tell you my take on what you've said?
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
I think you're 100% right. But earlier we also said why fishing isn't the same as snooker.
Yes,
and why
you're right.
It isn't the same as golf.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is with fishing, there is always that extra uncontrollable factor.
Yeah, you're right.
That those other sports don't have.
We're all a bit nuts.
So I'm letting,
that's
in my
definitely
opinion, I'm letting the jumping in slide in because of the fact fishing is that tiny bit more different. It frustrates the life out of me that these external influences. It isn't fair.
I think, I think the one thing with it, I know what you're saying, but it was weird because the second I'd found out that I'd won after seeing Joe, it dawned on me now that I don't want to do something, but I've got to do it because I don't want... The thing is, no, this is genuinely it. I don't want people thinking... what, you know, Ian jumping in like. I don't want people to think that I'm not, because I'm not like that. I'm not that dude at all. But also, there's other people there, like, to be truthful, it didn't matter on that actual day. I was going in because Mikey and Richie were there. Whether I was swimming or not, I was swimming because Joe said to me, obviously she knows that I don't really want to do it. And I said, look, I'm going in one way or other. I'm either going in by my own feet or I'm going in by Mikey and Richie's hands. I'm going in.
So it's inevitable anyway.
Yeah, I'm going in. It's just how far I go in. Luckily, if I jump in, it probably won't be as far as those two can throw me.
They'd probably chuck you onto island.
Yeah, they probably would have done.
It looked pretty cold. You look pretty cold as you come out.
Breath away. Honestly, if you're ever going to do it, don't do it in welly boots and a thermal top and another top.
I was going to say, it just looks heavy.
Yeah, heavy. Well, when I went under, Jenny's isn't very deep. I'm not very tall. I was fully expecting to be able to put my feet down. I couldn't touch the bottom. But yeah, that was a bit. So that happened, obviously. And then the other side of it, obviously the check, trying to do the champagne again. I'm not really that type of shouty person. I like and the winner is, thank you ever so much. I get to sort of slide away.
See you later.
Out of the way. Yeah, I'm not a crowd. If you asked me to help somebody about fishing, I could talk in front of the world. But when there's people standing there and you're sort of centre of attention thingy. No, that ain't me at all. I don't do that bit. I like to I sneak away if I can. Yeah, that was me, obviously.
Changing the old
looking
clobber
forward,
after the diving.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
I think what sums it up for me, mate, is I said my question to you was, how did it feel? When did it kick in? And it is quite literally a mini roller coaster of emotions after you've won.
When it really kicked in for me, I would say the first time was obviously my phone went. Well, how it never blew up, I don't know. But again, talking about the people that support me, obviously seeing Joe like that got me a little bit. I think I controlled it a little bit more at the time because it was I knew what was coming, really. I could see it. And I'm more like, it's all right sort of thing, trying to calm her down as such. But then when I got on the phone, obviously speaking to, I spoke to Andy first, obviously, because he's been, a massive part of my life for sort of the last 5-6 years. And
You've done an awful lot together,
an awful lot together. Obviously, my match focus, Commercial Masters, and again, it's something that I'll talk through in future podcasts as such, but I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without him now, because again, he funded me in them early years, and I'll be forever thankful for that. And when he phoned, he was like, he's mad. Like, you see the serious, chilled out side of him, but there's another side of him. He's absolute Fruit Loop. Like, when I spoke to him, he was going nuts, like beyond nuts, mad.
I can't imagine that.
Doing
mad.
what? Doing
just
what?
going, mate, just smashed, with obviously language, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're unreal, I told you. And, like, he's a bit like Conor McGregor type. He's got that in it.
Yeah. He's evil.
Yeah.
Evil.
He's like, what is it? He was messaging Joe throughout the match, and Joe's like, Andy is obviously saying, how's he getting on and stuff like that. Joe's panicking. Oh, so-and-so's catching. And what did he write to Joe? He wrote, there's not a man, what did he write? Something like, there's not a man born from his mother that's going to beat Paulie in beast mode. Something like that. Like, he's got all of that, and that's what he always says to me. He's like, we're not here to take part, lad, are we? And then Joe goes, we're here to take over, in a sort of Manchester try thing. So yeah, speaking to him on the way home, listening to how happy he was for me, that sunk it in. Like, if you can look at almost a nail, like, Joe give it a whack, Andy give it a few more whacks as such. And then when obviously I spoke to Will, I spoke to Marky, spoke to Tommy, spoke to Barry Zimmerman, obviously he's been a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And it's weird, I never get used to this. Like, when you speak to, like, Will's my mate and Andy's my mate, but they're my idols, if that that's what it is.
But
so
that's lovely, that, as well, at the same time.
It's weird.
But you got that admiration for him as
massive,
well, even though
massive amount of respect. And I think that's when people, and they like, see, I knew it was only a matter of time. And it shows, do you know what I mean? So when listening to how, I think it was a bit like when I was there when Andy won his final. You see me going mad because he'd done so much for me. So to be there and witness it, and for me, it's like a privilege. Like, William could have asked anyone on the planet when I was younger to sit behind him, to watch him in a final. When he didn't, he picked me. He didn't pick me because I can help him. He'd done it to help me. And again, like, Andy could have asked anyone as such. So I see it as a privilege to be able to sat behind, and I've learned a lot, which probably helped me in this. So to see them when they're buzzing for you, like, I was more happy for when Andy won his first fish show, because see how close he'd been and how much he'd done for me. I was so happy for him. And I think that's what it is. It's
when you see their response to you doing well.
It's the same, but for how it feels for you weren't like how I'd expected it to feel. But the bit that really got me was the following sort of morning, where it was actually, I was replying to all my messages and they kept coming, and people are like, again, from his subscribers, you've done it, you've inspired me, I'm so chuffed for you. Like Brandon George, again, I had Brandon in the Match Academy on his first one, and you look at where he is now, and I told him, you just got to keep doing it. Everything about you is bang on, And he wrote on it, like, I made his year. And I know that Brandon sort of looks at me a bit like I look at Will and Andy as such.
He talks about you a lot, though, Brandon. A lot.
And but again, it's that you get it from someone and you pass it on to other people. And it was weird because it didn't really feel a lot. And then I'd done my match report, and with my match report, obviously I'm reliving what's going on, but I'm reliving it in seconds, a bit like I just did there, where I'm experiencing it and the emotion side of it, of like seeing Joe and my messages, and I just like, and it's weird, you know. It's
quite a welling uppy sort of proud thing.
It's the bit that made it is for me, I didn't realise how many people genuinely wanted me to do well. And if you ask me again, like, because I've got my little things in my mind of what I want to achieve. I want to win the Pole Masters. That is my number one. If you give me the choice,
Masters,
if you give me the choice, I wear 11 out. I know what I'd pick, man. I know what I would have picked. So I've got certain things in my head, you know, and I think because, it's just a weird way. I'll tell you how it felt, and this is how I explained it in me. I'm not a sort of religious person, but it was almost like the universe knew that I'd had enough now. That it is booting me one too many times, and if it boots me again, I don't know if I'll be able to get up. History shows that I have got up, because I do every time, because that's just, I can't put it down until I've done something, you know. That's just the way I am. But it knew that, come on now. Do you know what I mean?
What I would like to touch on, obviously, I've seen what you do with your match focus and how I talk to people who are on match focus. They love it to bits. So I did a coaching weekend at Docklow of the week. People on that are on it, and we had a good old chat about it. And the way you do it, where you look back at your matches and you talk about what you could have done better, they must have seen you come close to winning Tunnel Barn Masters, and that's the one that you want to win. I know you even say it on your match focus that you think that's the pinnacle.
Oh, it
that's
is for
the
me.
one.
That's the one for me.
Hardest to win that you really want to.
Yeah, I think if you scored the Pole Masters from 1 to 100 in terms of the anglers that are there, in my personal opinion, I could be wrong, I've never fished abroad, but in terms of people chance of winning it, the score there, I would beg that it's probably the high scoring event.
100% agree with you. 100% agree. But they've seen you miss out on that.
Oh, a
by
heartbreaking.
11
I would devo, like proper devastated, man.
So how nice is it that all them people who are supporting you, which is your job,
you're
doing it for a living, and these people are supporting you,
that's
and then they see you win one in the same year.
Yeah.
You know, that must be
frightening.
It feels good on so many levels, feels great for them, but the fact that all them people are feeling good about you doing it must feel great.
That's what got me. It's the sort of, the fishing side of it, you know, is one of them, but what really I can't control, or the bit that, like for me, winning, I don't know, everyone's got what they want to win as such, but the bit that I could have never prepared myself for was how literally blew me away. Like I would, like literally when I was doing my match report, I couldn't do it because I was just gone.
Yeah,
because of the support. But I'll tell you what's so nice, and what now I've had time to think about it, is through my match focus, when I started, I feel every year I'm going to get better. Personally, I don't feel like I'm nowhere where I want to be yet. I know where I want to be, and I feel like I'm just starting where I want to be. But obviously, 2 and a bit years ago when we started, obviously I hadn't won what I'd had won now, you know. And what's nice with that is we've got everyone from people just starting match fishing, you know, getting into their club matches, trying to do well, you know, maybe win a section. And then you sort of got people that are doing well in their club, you know, and they might want to win, you know, maybe they're an overall match or do well in their overall team thing, and then maybe jump onto the open scene, people that are doing well in open matches to festivals.
Can I ask you something? Have you ever had anyone come on and join Match Focus who's never fished a match before?
No one's ever actually asked me. I've had a few people speak to me over Messenger about it, but I'm not aware of it as such, because again, it's down to them if they want to message me or not, you know. So what I try and do things the right way, and
because you've got all these different levels,
all these different levels. And the thing is again, through what I've learned, you know, I've had to learn along the way. And I think one thing that I always say is progress is it's irreversible. You can't go backwards, and almost you've got to do everything that's wrong. You fish a lot of bad matches, and it's like walking up a ladder for the first time. You can't just jump up to rung, 30 or such. You've got to go from 1 to 2. And sometimes, like snakes and ladders, you go up a bit and then you bump down. But to get where you want to get to, you've got to have gone through all of this other stuff to be able to be a regular winner. And what I try and do is explain it to people in the right way. And they've seen how, my fishing goes. So this is how I try and describe it. Not going back too far, but just say gold. I'm doing really, really well there. I need to...
Gold Valley.
Yeah. I'm not doing, I'm doing well there, but that's sort of all I'm doing. Now I need to go to Larford because I need to fish for F1s again when I've fished with Des for a bit. So I go to Larford. I'm expected to win, but I'm not. I'm at the bottom of the pile because I've got to start again. And then you work up the ladder there, and then you're doing well there, and you think, right, I need another thing now.
That's 2 in locker now, though,
Exactly. And then after that, went back to gold for a bit, and then climbed up a bit, and was doing a bit of both, a bit of my team fishing, stuff like that. And then it was like, right, White Acres, right, I'm rubbish at F1s, I need to do this. So then I start, again, I go from all of that now, back to tunnel, start at the bottom, work my way up again.
Tunnel barn's in the bag as
exactly,
well now.
All of that side of it. And that's what I try and show people through my match focus is it takes time, but practice. I'm trying to think of how it says on me. I've got my mind, it probably would just go blank now. But
you're going to talk about one of the Paul Holland sayings, aren't you?
Yeah, I've got millions of them.
Yeah.
I've got so many of them
Little
upstairs. Little
inspirational
bits because it's not always bouncing right for you.
Yeah.
But it's trying to stay motivated. That's the one. Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong.
That's a good one.
I like
that.
And that's the
truth until you get it right.
Just practice until you can't get it wrong. And the thing is, what I do for me is I put people who is the best at, say, I don't know, pick anything you want, like rod and line fishing for me is William. You fish with him a lot. He's a joke. And I've been very fortunate because there's one lot of gear. When you draw next to people, you could be on a better peg, they can be on a better peg. But when there's one lot of gear, one lot of bait, everything's identical and there's you and them, there is a difference.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of that. And that's why, people say to me, you put yourself down a little bit, I know the level and I want a bit. That's my end goal. It's important not to lose sight of that. And what can happen, I believe, in any sport is ego is a problem. You've got to be aware of that, When it's going well for you, it's easy to walk around and think, yeah, I'm the big dog. I could do this and do that. But the problem is then what happens is that I get the better of you. And then you start making excuses. No, I don't want to fish like that. No, I don't fish like that. I don't need to do that. You're on the backward. You're gone.
Whereas you're saying practice everything, learn everything.
There's always improvement. No matter how good you are, you can be better.
One thing I'm getting from what you have just said, and I think it's wrapped up in the match you fish to win, is experience speaks for an awful lot. Like the different venues you've been to and different methods you've had to fish. Just in them 3 that you tickled on then. Gold Valley, loads of rod and line, big carp, old carp, been in there for years, hard to catch, bloodworm fishing there in the winter. So, right, that's just one.
Yeah.
Just scratching the surface on one, by the way. Larford, totally different venue, different species, caster fishing, shallow for F1s. I remember seeing you do it loads when I was younger. And then that one's another, like a totally different set of experience. Then Tunnel Barn.
And it's totally different set of people as well.
Different anglers, different part of the country. Yeah. They fish differently.
And you can learn. You're like a sponge. You're sucking it all in.
So I think in terms of advice for anyone listening and everything that you've said in this that's led towards you winning your final, going out there and getting as much experience and a broad range of experience, a range of different venues and a range of different methods for a range of different species is important in a load of different conditions. Yeah. I listened to you talk about your fishing. You talk about conditions like it were calm. Massive, could see them fizzing. It weren't that kind of day. It were that kind of day. It rained.
The one thing I will say, what I've noticed from what I would call, when people say, what is the difference? The difference between what I would call the elitist, the 1%, and this was, I don't believe I'm there yet, but I will be trying my damnedest to get there. The very best, what they do is they work it out faster, and then they are technically better. So the technical bit, baiting up, shipping your pole out, no tangles, shipping back in, they're just like liquid. When you can not have a clue about tennis, watch Roger Federer and think, give me that racket, I can do that. Anyone, when you watch and you just think, yeah, you can. You watch Ronnie play snooker and he does a reverse check side, whatever. You think, give me that. I could do that. Anyone who's very, very good at it. And that's why the practice till you can't get it wrong bit. When you watch the very best at anything, they make it look ridiculously easy because they don't have to think about it.
I just want to say Tyson Fury at boxing. He makes boxing look like
piece of cake.
Yeah, I could do that.
Exactly.
And
that's that's the bit with it. And then they make the right choices. What I've learned, again, because I've watched Andy in a few finals, that helps because finals now become standard. It's just, it is what it is, you know. And we're different people, completely different. I'm all about how to catch the next fish. He's all about digest information. He wants to know stats, all of that type of it. And the reason he won was because he worked out faster and then technically done it better. Bottom line, that's what it is. And if you ask me about my match, because basically you're winging it, there is nothing to go on. That's all you're doing is winging it. You're working it out. You've got to be on the fish. It doesn't matter how much you think you can work out. There's nothing there to catch. It's irrelevant. But when you have a chance, that's all that you genuinely have to do. You have to make the right decision at the right time. And that was the thing. When I went shallow with 2 hours to go, it's game over because I've been priming it for 40 minutes. Doesn't matter what you do now. You ain't going to catch me because I've got all the fish in my peg.
Can I ask one? I want to start wrapping things up.
Sorry.
But one thing I really want to ask you about from a selfish point of view and for the people in the podcast.
Yeah.
We talked about the method that you started off on and then you've gone shallow. What were the few, if I said to you, give me 3 gems of information about this shallow fishing for Carassios.
Okay.
I am asking you to give away your secret.
Yeah, it's no problem at all.
But, you know, 3 gems of information that gave you a massive edge to catch them in that final, because you've caught these fish that are tricky to catch in a high-profile final. What 3 or 4 little things have you done that have made you brilliant at that in that final?
I think the biggest thing is going back to what I said about practice. It's understanding that they are not carp. They are not F1s. They're not like anything else.
So how do you fish differently for them because of that?
With F1s, it's all about sort of slapping your rig and tapping where allowed. Well, I'm talking about why, because you're not allowed to tap. So it's about slapping your rig and trying to hold on tight to your back shots or your float, trying to get the fish to hook themselves. When you're fishing for carp, they can do that to an extent. They will pull your elastic, but sometimes the float goes under. And most of the time, it don't come back up. You know if you miss a bite from a carp, because it bows out the peg most of the time. Whereas with these Carassios, you've got to slap your rig and they permanently want it falling. You don't always catch them as statically hanging it, but they don't pull your elastic out and they give the tiniest little, and you miss it and you think, oh, a roach. Nah.
Carassio.
Yeah, and that was the thing. It's about understanding the discipline of how them fish feed, and that was the biggest thing for me. And understanding the bait. Again, my F1 fishing normally is about slapping rig, trying to hold it tight, getting the fish to hook themselves, based around maggots and casters predominantly. When you're fishing for Carassios, it's not like that. You have to slap your rig, you have to make noise, it's got to be falling all the time, little light rigs as well. They tend to feed, I would say, between 10 and maybe 18 inch deep. Little light, fairy rigs really, so your bait's always falling. But you have to strike at all your bites. That's
right.
What I would say I've learned. I'm by no means expert. I got showed how to do it.
You've just won Parkdean final doing it, so you can't be that bad.
Yeah. But the biggest thing, I think, if you ask for another piece of advice, is priming. You ain't just going to go feed 10 pellets, ship out, slap your rig and hook one. That's no different than any style of fishing. You've got to prime it, keep feeding. And I think that's the same if you're trying to catch, any volume of fish shallow. Priming's the most important thing. You don't want to, even if you know your peg's solid, that's one thing that again, from what I've learned at tunnel, is how long have I got, just say my peg was solid after 20 minutes. I wouldn't have gone on it. I'd have still left it that time, because I'm not going to go in. And again, the nature of the match is only 4 hours. Yes, you've got that option of dropping in shore, but I would have still primed it for, really 40 minutes.
Like it.
Because
That's a little mini Carasio masterclass.
Yeah, but it's not
right
just
there.
Yeah, not just for Carasio, it's for F1. It's all about priming it. When your days, think about that. How long have I caught them for? And try and think about how long have you primed it for. If you primed it for that little bit longer, it's all about gathering fish there, because basically, when you go out, you're going to slap your rig, take one. How long can your peg withstand it? Withstand that constant.
Taking one out of it. So spooking the others.
Yeah,
do they come back? How quick do they come back?
That's it. So if you can prime it for long enough to the point where you go out, slap your rig, hook one, and then as soon as you hook one feed, you're keeping what's in your peg happy. So one, if there was 30 of us in a room, one just gets robbed. It doesn't matter, because there's enough of us still bounding around, and keep us all eating as such. And I think that's what I will say. Again, what you said on conditions are massive. If it's wet, windy, if it's windy, forget about it, because you're going to slap your rig over, you're going to get by, you're never going to see it. So again, that was in my mind, of knowing how tricky. Again, if it was wet and windy for F1s, drink up, because they're just dead confident. They come shallower. They're easier to self-hook. But when with them Carasios, you haven't really got that option of self-hooking them when it's windy. So you sort of need good conditions, I think, to be able to catch them properly shallow on the pole.
Interesting. So much to it. One tiny part of fishing, and again, it all comes back to that experience and knowledge and doing it in the past and learning from
massive,
others.
Yeah.
So much to it. Absolutely awesome, mate. I could talk to you about fishing forever and ever. Final couple of little things I want to touch on. Having won a big final now, and I know it's something that you, talking to me as a friend personally, talking to your match focus guys and girls, you've done it in Guru films in the past. Something you've put a lot of emphasis on is that you've wanted to win a big final before, and you have wanted to do it, and now you've done it. Will you go on and try and win more of them?
I think last year I got it bang on with what I see a lot, and this the other side of, doing the podcast, it's all about the winners. It's not about anything else. Now, throughout the summertime, when all the qualifiers and stuff are on, I guarantee you, I go on a Saturday and Sunday and I see more cars wheel spinning than if I went to Santa Cruz.
People going home,
because that's the reality of it. You go in there, and I think it's important to keep it in perspective. Last year, what I said to myself is, would I be willing to go and fish an open match? And if the answer was yes, and I could book a ticket, then I probably would have done. If you ask me, bottom line, if I didn't do my match focus, would I do many qualifiers? Probably not, Matt. For the reality is, it's not for. I haven't got that mentality. I need to go fishing every time I go and feel like I'm going to catch some fish and get better and grow. The biggest reason initially why I've done it, because obviously my subscribers, I want to try and achieve something for them, because it's sort of part of my little mini family. That's what it's like. That's how I treat it.
Lovely, mate.
I want to see them do well, and if I can help them and inspire them, and then obviously, pressure from Joe, pressure from Andy, pressure from Will. Like, why aren't you doing this? Such and such one. You're just as good as him. You need to get your bum doing it. I haven't got that mentality where I can go fishing and catch nothing for 10 times, but on the 11th time I'll qualify and it's all good. I'm not that type of person. I need to feel like I matter, not, well done, mate, you've drawn the best peg, you're going to win. And I'm not saying it happens all of the time, but you need a lot of luck. You can be the best, you're best there, and it's not fair. It's like me playing Michael Van Gerwen and I'm going to aim for my van outside, but he's got a throw and hit a pinhead, at 50 metres. That's the reality of it sometimes. You are just not going to win. I'm not saying that I'm the Michael Van Gerwen, but because I put a lot into everything that I do, I want to feel like it's me that makes a difference more often than not. And I know with the qualifying, the way it is, the best I can do is if I feel like, I'll go to tunnel because I'm going to get a day's fishing. I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to feel like I come home thinking, Paul, you donut, if you should have done this, if you could have done that, if you would have changed a little bit sooner, you know, you would have caught more. For me, that's why I go. I need the growth. That's what I need for me personally. I am not the type of person that can go and fish 10 matches, what I was saying, and win on the 11th and be like, well, it doesn't matter because I'm in the final. I can't do that, Matt. My brain...
Will we see you in another final?
Hopefully.
So you will do some more qualifiers?
Yeah, I'll definitely do some more qualifiers, you know, but it's
Pick
not...
them carefully. Pick the venues where you're going to get some bites, catch some fish, enjoy your day, give yourself scope for growth and learning.
My thing is I want to be consistent and I want to be successful, and I like festivals. For me, I'd like to see some go over a month, because this is the way I see it with festivals. You could write down, say, 100 anglers that I know of, and if there was a festival over 35 days at certain venues, you could name the venues now and said, right, the match is from 1 to however many people are fishing. Write me the top 10. I bet I could write it down now. Because the luck evens itself out over the course of time. You know, you go one day, you don't draw very well, you don't catch a lot. Next day, you might draw a little bit better. But there's a lot of middly days. What Darren said to me, there's a lot of second or thirds, or maybe even a third, where most people had finished fifth. Why do you think Des is the only one to have won more than 10 festivals?
Because he does everything
he's a joke
all the
at
time.
it.
Yeah.
How many times? And this is what I mean as to winning things matters to me. It does matter to me. It matters to me more because I can give them to Jo, because that's her reward for what she does for me. She, you know, I'm away so much, and I come back. When I come back from Hallcroft quickly, this is what my missus like. I was away for 2 and a bit weeks coaching. Then I went to Hallcroft, fished that silverfish final. I had a bream jump out of the water with a couple of minutes to go. It cost me framing. I didn't get home. I've not seen her for 2.5 weeks. I didn't get home till about 11 o'clock at night. There was an all-winners final at Gold the next day, and I woke up at 6 o'clock, and I said, and I've looked at her, and she went, "You're going, aren't you?" And I was like, "Do you mind?" She went, "No, I know you need to go."
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you win? Wallop. Have some of that.
Give her the money. But it's not about the money either for her.
No.
But for me to give her a little trophy when I'm pissy, and sometimes I say things that I don't mean, you know, and I'm away for God knows however long, and then there's things that we maybe can't do because I've got, you know, she might want to watch something, but if I've got something coming up, I'll be like, "Oh, you seen that thing? Can we watch that on telly?" And she's like, "Yeah, but is your gear sorted for tomorrow?" Well, I won't be. And she's like, "Well, go and do that, and then we get our time."
Brilliant.
She's
super supportive.
Incredible, that.
Super
Yeah.
Very
supportive.
So
selfless as well.
for me, when I get things like this, for me to be able to go, they are sweet. That is massive to her. For me, I want to be in that level that I talk about. You know, when I look at, there's so many who I look at, and literally, it's nice now because I can just walk up and be like, "You're right, Daz, how's it going?" You know, like Darren Cox, "You're right, Des, you're right, Will." Andy, Tommy, you know, obviously you. I can speak to anyone, you know, but that's my target. That's where I want to be. I want to be, when I can't do it, that I get mentioned in that light.
Can I just, this is dead personal.
Yeah.
I've got to say it because it's how I feel. I think you don't think you're as good as you are, because I put you in an incredible category. Because when I was younger, I used to read about you at magazines.
I remember seeing you at Blingy.
I can remember seeing your hook box in a magazine once with the most green gammers on a pin I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Dad, see what I mean? I need to tie some more up. Let's get to the tackle shop." But what I'm saying is, you are super experienced. You have won an absolute ton of stuff, and you're one of the most consistent everything you've ever tried to do, really. And I
try and pride myself on being like
I
that.
just needed to say to you, I think you need to be
the
really
most
proud of how good
important-
you are at fishing.
I think the most important thing in anything is hunger. And when you, in your mind, believe you're somewhere, what happens is you get bone idle, you get lazy, you take your foot off the gas.
You're never going to do that, though, Paul. You're never going to do that.
Because that's the thing for me. I like I want to draw next to the people who I consider to be the gods, the top 1%, and them draw next to me and go, you're a joke. Then I'm where I want to be. Then that means more to me than because they're that in luck. That's pure hard work, practice, relentlessness, and that's where I want to be. And the only way to get there, you can't wing that. You can't bodge that. Do you know what I mean? It comes down to hours spent doing something, I think what they say, you've got to spend 10,000 hours to be considered an expert. When you look at the people that I admire, that's what they've got. And for me, that's what I want. And so that's why I try and do it that way, because when you look and there's a big gap means lots of growth. There's lots of 1% there to gain. When you look at it and the gap's not that big, you think, the gap's not that big, is it? Do you know what I mean? I'm not.
But that little gap could be a really important gap.
Exactly. Whereas when you look at it, that's how I try and see things.
That could be the 11 ounce.
The thing is, Matt, with fishing, it's forever changing. It's ever evolving. And you've got things happen and then it changes and then it goes down here and goes down there. And then you've got to be open-minded. If you want to stay at the level that, whatever level you're shooting for, you've got to stay humble and you've got to stay aware, like an awareness, and don't write things off. Don't look and think, well, I'm a sponsored angler, I've won such and such, and this lad down here has just started open match fishing. I'll give you the perfect example. Jack went and won the Drennan Winter Pole Masters at Tunnel Barn Farm. I think he's been match fishing for 9 months.
Brilliant.
Exactly. But he's gone there fearless. I know he was dead nervous he weren't fearless, but he's gone there and done what he wanted to do. It's possible. But if you went there and went, well, without being funny, if he'd have said to me, well, this is what I'm going to, fish ground bait and dead maggots in the edge. If he'd have said to me, well, that's what I'm going to do, I'd have been... There's certain areas on certain lakes you've got a chance of that working, but I wouldn't pin my hope. Look at what I know. Now, if I was that, like that, I'd have just dismissed it. Well, you've been on the epicenter. But even there, going there, I had a mint first day. Again, talking about the way that I am, I was absolutely devastated the second day because I want to win one and it just will not let me get over the line. Or a bit too devastated afterwards, truth be told. I've learned something again, when I look at it, where should I have ended up in my section without going on too long? I was last. I was still gutted because I never felt like I had a chance, whereas I should accept the fact, well, if you were on every peg, you probably would have come last. That's the average result. But if you're not open to suggestion, I'm looking at it thinking, what did he feed Jack? I asked him the questions. I want to know. I want to see. I'm aware of it. If you looked at people, which it can be done.
We're talking about Jack.
I'm trying to think of his surname now.
I saw a result, but I were in Bulgaria.
Yes. I'm no.
We'll find it out. and put a nice picture.
Yeah, lovely lad, Jack.
Yeah,
but he's not been fishing for very long as well. Match fishing, 9 months. I just know him as Jack. I'm not the best with people's surnames. You probably hear me talking. I don't call people by their surnames as such. But yeah, massive thing. But again, being aware and seeing things.
Open-mindedness, flexibility, being able to adapt and change,
grow,
be fluid.
There's 1% everywhere, Again, I didn't realise it was a lad called Dave Lewis subscribes to us. I could talk about how I met him through like me studying accountancy and stuff like that. But there's a lad called Dave Brailsford, and it's called the aggregation of marginal gains. Basically, that's how he changed the Sky cycling team. Now, the way I am with my fishing, I was unaware of this, but it's basically identical.
Yes,
it's an aggregation of marginal gains, which is massive. So when you're looking, and that's what I try and do, I look and think, right, if I can do that a bit better, I could do that a bit better. Before you know it, I'm 10, 15% better. That's massive. And no matter what level you're at, there's so many little percents here, there, and everywhere. And
I can remember that thing that you're talking about with the Sky cycling team. I'm sure that a part of that, what you're talking about, they actually flew out mattresses for the team because they would sleep better on these particular mattresses, and that would give them an edge. Because when I first went away on World Champs with the kids, I remember my dad saying, listen, you could do a better bed than this, you'll get a better night's sleep. And I was like, And then a few years later, he mentioned it to me and he went, have a look at this. when Sky took over the cycling team, this is what they did. It's ever so weird you've just brought it up, because
But
my dad's the only other person who's ever mentioned that to me.
It's weird because, again, like maybe in another podcast I'll talk about it a lot more, but I've not always been a confident person. You know, I've really struggled at times with confidence. And speaking to Jimmy, you know, Bullard, again, he's just he's Jim to me, you know, he's sound. And the amount of help he's given me mentally, what to study, what to research. There's so much from other sports that you can look at that you can bring into what you do.
I want to cut you off here.
Yeah,
sound. This is
I know.
what we need to talk about.
I know.
Oh, I'm just going to jump in
up
as well, because I found that, I think that's Jack there. Is it Jack Impey?
Yeah, Jack Impey, that's it.
Jack?
Yes. Yeah, Jack.
I know he is.
Yeah.
He battered me at Partridge.
He
this
redesigned
summer.
it. Yeah.
What a legend.
Unbelievable.
Huge congratulations to Jack Impey on becoming the inaugural winner of the Drennan Winter Pole Championship.
Yeah, massive.
He is a right lad.
He is a right lad. Yes.
Love him to bits. He goes to Blundell's and stuff like that. Yeah.
He's
fantastic.
an absolute star. He stopped opposite me. He was so nervous second day. I'm like, why are you nervous? You ruined it the first day. Just go there and do that again.
Absolutely awesome.
Made
well
up for
done,
Fair
mate.
play to you, Jack.
Phenomenal.
And that's the thing with fishing.
Yeah. And what you've talked about there is something that I need to talk to you about when we have you on here
definitely,
for the
the
Paul Holland
one,
podcast.
yeah.
We are doing it.
You are coming
back. It might
back,
be over
mate.
like 3 or 4 times. I don't shut up when I'm talking about
No,
fishing.
it's good. It's good. We'll probably have to do about a dozen with Paul. Like, we'll do one on this topic.
Just get some
this time.
sleeping bags in here, so we'll sleep overnight and carry on in the morning. Yeah.
No, on a serious note, though, I'd love to have you in for, I want to know the full story of you, where it started, everything. And that's what I'm talking about now, because I'm sure everyone's going to be commenting saying, can we hear the full? Of course we can.
Yeah.
I really wanted to celebrate the Parkdean Masters final win.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cheers, man.
I want to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I normally ask a few questions.
Yeah.
Ask them to the same people every
Go
time.
on.
I've adapted them slightly.
Okay.
Because, of course, I want to ask the main questions
Yes.
when I have you in for the main
Yeah.
podcast. So I've adapted them towards Whiteacres and the Parkdean final.
Okay.
So, short answers, Paul.
Short.
Toby, get that glass of water. Anything more than 2 sentences, pour it on his head.
That's it.
An item in your seat box you couldn't have lived without in the Parkdean Masters final. What is it?
Oh, in my seat box.
2 sentences, Paul.
Seat box.
You
One
use some
item.
words up there, mate.
It'd have to be a disgorger. I just can't live without it when I'm fishing.
Don't blame you. Need it to get your car.
Mm.
If you could only fish one peg at Whiteacres for the rest of your life, which peg would it be?
You bugger. I was hoping you was going to say only one venue. One peg?
Yeah. One peg at Whiteacres for the rest of your life. Which peg? I'll count, obviously, Belingi and Porth and everything.
Oh, don't
you.
put Porth in there. Oh, mate. That's hard now. One peg.
Time's ticking.
You've been
I'm going to have
arching.
to say 20 Belingi.
Nice peg 20 Belingi.
Because I just never get bored of outwitting them.
Good.
That's always a win. When you and it drags and you whack it and you're like, yes.
I've got you.
I've outgot you. Yeah, that's it.
Who is the best angler that you've ever fished with at Whiteacres?
I couldn't pick one, Matt. Genuinely, I couldn't.
I'm sorry, we're not going to accept that, I'm afraid.
I couldn't.
Got
There
it.
isn't. No.
Go.
All right, then, let me adapt it slightly. What's the best performance you've ever seen from an angler at Whiteacres? A memorable performance from an angler.
Memorable performance. Do you know what? It's a difficult one because you're so tuned into what you're doing. But how could I answer this the best possible way? I'm going to answer this different than your question. If you go and fish Whiteacres, you will meet people that will change your life. And it'll change your fishing first, but you get to meet people that will change your thinking, that will change the way that you live your life. I've learned so much from so many people at Whiteacres. Have started off as a fishy chat, and then you get to know them as friends, and then you can talk to them about such and such has happened, and you meet people that they've got a lot of wisdom, and they've already got the t-shirt that you're worried about, and that's why I've referenced so many people, that they could talk to you for 10 minutes and it changes your whole life, because it changes your whole mentality and it makes you a better person, a human.
So what you're saying is go to White Acres, fish the festivals, talk to people, learn from them.
Yeah. Not just, I know we're relating it to White Acres, but any event where there's very, very good competition, because you'll meet people, and don't be starstruck, you know, go and speak to them. And you'd be amazed again, like after the matches, before the matches. Again, I keep it short terms because I'm going to get wet.
Too late for that now. You're the first person that's ever gone, listen, Matt, I ain't answering your question. I want to talk about this.
I like that. It's bold, isn't it?
First person.
But I'm trying to give value.
I know exactly what you mean. I think it's a great answer, and it's brilliant advice for people as well.
Yes.
If there's one thing that you could change about fishing events such as the Parkdean final and other big finals, what would it be?
That more pegs could compete, that more people genuinely feel part of it. Because I feel like in a lot of big events, obviously qualification, it's a little bit different, because you qualify and then bosh, you're in it on the Saturday. But with a lot of the finals, I think, again, looking back of the way I react as well, is there's a lot of people that you want to see you do well, and for you to not even get a chance to just catch a few fish for your family, friends, the people that support you, I just like to see that. That's the one thing that I would change. What sort of
things? Because I fully agree with you. I've been in a few myself where I've sat there and felt like a caged monkey.
Yes.
I can't do anything. Yes. And people, and the worst thing is when people come up and say, "Why didn't you do what he did?" And you're like, "Well, wind's blowing that way. There's no fish."
Did you try down the edge today, Matthew?
Exactly. You know what I'm talking about. I hate that feeling. Right? How the hell? Yeah. How could someone organising a final make it fairer and make it better? From what you've just said, more room.
Yeah, more
wider
room.
pegs.
Yeah. You're never going to make it 100% fair,
but slightly fairer.
But
would
if
be
you
nice.
can make it, I feel like a 5 hour is better than a 4 hour. But again, at times it feels like you just you're part of the show. It's the show. You just happen to be part of it. Whereas it's a bit like, going up to Ronnie before he's about to make pot the black on a 147. All right, Ron, you couldn't give us a few little tips here about how to make a break, could you? Was you fishing? I know what you were saying. It's a little bit like that.
Yeah,
it's different. But I know fishing's different. And I know it's not always fair. But even if it feels like everyone's more part, I know
you're going to catch some fish.
Exactly. You're
going to get some bites.
You're going to get some bites. And I know that you can't, it doesn't matter how many fish you put in lakes sometimes. They don't want to feed. But that's the only thing. I just feel like, for me, again, what I feel with the final side of it is, or when it comes to big competitions, big matches, is I want to do well for the people that put their life into me, to be able to do what I can do. And it breaks your heart when they're watching you over there and you can't get a bite, and you just think, I just want to catch a few, do you know what I mean? I just want to show you what I can do. And it's weird. One thing that I want to touch on, again, I don't know if you're going to put it in or not, but one of the biggest things that I took from that final, it was weird because the following morning I can't leave questions unanswered. I got a bit, if somebody's taken the time out to say me well done or happy birthday, I've got to reply to them. I don't like being late, don't like having stuff all in my inbox. And so I'm replying to my messages early Sunday morning, like saying thank you. And Joe's gone, I've done a video of you. And she sent me it, and I've clicked on it, and I've looked on it, and I'm thinking, God, bloody hell, I look like a Millie William there.
Brilliant.
I was so chuffed when I see that. I was buzzing again because of...
You're watching yourself fish that final,
Yeah, it's only like a little tiny clip of it type thing.
Have we got it,
I've even got it.
So... Yeah.
Let's have a look.
It's not the best quality type.
So this is in the final.
It's in the final, yeah.
There he is. Cranky. For anyone who's listening, it's Paul from the other bank. His wife Jo's filmed it, and he's cranking one in on the feeder by the looks of things.
Yeah, on the method.
Picking his landing net up. Go on then, get in that net.
Come on, good skills.
He's a munter, isn't he?
I just watched it and just thought,
You're on it. You're fishing. You're there.
I'm a mini wheel there. I'm a right little beast there.
Love
like
it.
that for me, I can't tell you, because the amount of hours I've spent practicing playing the fish, practicing my casting.
So back to the question. If the finals were fairer, there were more pegs you could win off. More people could see you in that mode.
Yes.
It's all relevant.
And it's meant for your family, you know, and that's what it's all about. The whole thing is, even if you get there, you don't do any good. If you've caught, 40, 50, 60 pound or such, you know what I mean, and felt like, and then maybe 80, 91 it, and they're like, you caught a few fish, do you know what I mean? Like, for me, that's what I'd like to see.
Super.
It's a difficult one.
I like the answer though, and I agree with you on it, mate. I agree with you on it. All that time, effort, money, towards getting there, and sometimes you're not given the chance. It'd be nice in an ideal world to have more of a chance. Yes. Final question for you: if you had to give someone who's never won a final before that really wants to win one some advice about how best to win one, what would it be?
You just got to get down. You just got to get up one more time than you've been knocked down. I think you've got to be at a standard where you can do everything, and that's the one thing that I probably take for granted. I've been doing it a long time now. And eventually you get your chance. And if you're technically good enough to be able to do the required methods on the day as such. But what I will say is, don't put all your onus on it, because you could go and fish your first final and win it. You could quite easily fish 10 or 15 finals and be technically the best angler there and never get a chance to win it. So what I would say is... Great summary, that. Yeah. Great summary. Everyone's different. And I think the biggest thing is, social media and fishing is brilliant, but you've got to be truthful with what you want out of fishing. Now, me and you, Matt, we're very similar, happy-go-lucky, obsessed with fishing. But what you want out of your fishing and what I want out of my fishing are totally different things. Now, that's not to say what I want's wrong or what you want's wrong. It's what you want to do. And I feel like at times... Are you doing it for you, or are you doing it because you believe that's what you should be doing? Exactly. You go fishing for you. Now, for me, again, I know what I'm like. I'm a simpleton, really. Now, if I can't go asleep the night before a match, now, sometimes I go 3 times a week and I fish 2 festivals back to back and I still can't go asleep because I'm thinking like, oh, if I do that, if I draw that, what happens? That's what I'm like. I'm just in my own little bubble, basically. When I'm like that, I'm doing the right thing. The second I'm like, that is what it is. Do you know what I mean? If I draw hard, probably. I'm not doing. I'm not doing the style of fishing that I need to be doing. And do you remember when you used to just go fishing when you were kids? Not for money, not for trophies, not to please your sponsor or see how many bloody likes you get on Facebook. You went there because you just love going fishing and being out with your mates. It's important to remember why you go fishing. And I think that's what I feel is different with me. And I feel like in the past, I've been not swayed, but you find out, do I want to do this? Is this the right thing for me?
Yeah, or are you just getting dragged into it?
Trust in yourself. If you're that, wetting your knickers, cannot wait, buzzing, oh, can't wait to do this, I want to do that, you are doing the right thing. If you're looking at it as like, well, I can kind of take it or leave it, you do something different, because before you know it, if you do something for long enough for the wrong reasons, you'll stop doing it. And just remember why you went fishing to start with. It was about being outside, buzzing with your mates. Yes, we're all competitive. I get that. I'm as competitive as anyone. But remember the reasons why you do it. And if you've lost that, change it. So that's what I would say to people. If you're, wetting your knickers, I want to qualify for a final one, I want to win one, that's the right thing for you to do. If you're looking at it thinking, oh, bloody hell, I've got to drive 3 hours because I've got this qualifier to do.
Don't do it.
Do something else. Go and fish whatever. Just go back local and just catch some fish. Do you know what I mean? Remember why you do it.
Short answers, straight out the window.
Yeah, I've got many glasses of water over here.
I will let you off because it is
balling. They were brilliant.
A final one, mate.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to this one because this has been sort of the first, or one of the first few very topical podcasts about a specific event, and I've really enjoyed it because I know how many tangents me and you can go off on when we get going. Lovely to talk about one specific thing and very rich in information, tips and stories about it. What's the gift you've brought us for that?
I bought you a special one. Now, I couldn't, unfortunately, boys, bring you the trophy or anything like that because it's nothing to do with me, but Joe would hunt you down and cut your throats. So you couldn't have any of that. All that is her stuff. She's claimed it. But what... Oh, if I can bend down, I'm only kind of a little...
Hey up, hey up!
I bought you.
Wow.
I know you wanted something to do with, obviously... Oh, I watched Stuart's thing that I almost knocked off.
Right.
Man. That is the top kit and the rig that I used.
Get away.
Wow.
So,
so this is the winning rig from
that's
the
everything,
Parkdean Masters. This is the rig you used. The actual
Matt,
rig.
do you know how hard it was for me to know that I've got a rig that's got a hook on it that's not been retied?
So is this hook...
Everything.
This hook has been in the lip of a fish that you won the Parkdean Masters final.
That's a bit of history right there, isn't it?
I tell you what it is as well. I look on this table and we have got some awesome gifts. But Tobe, when I put a fishing pole with a line and a rig and a hook on it, how good does that look on the gift thing?
Looks wicked.
It sort of
fishing
finishes
rounds it all off.
It's
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I had to bring you a good one, Matt. You know,
you've
when I
done
look
well
down
there,
at
mate.
there's things here, this will be in like 15, 20 years' time. Well, it's legendary already, but in 15, 20 years' time, you'll look at this and just be like, wow. So, I wanted something good for you.
Mate, love it. It's got the hook on. These two look like number 10 or 11 shots. A little
Do you know how
Richie
hard?
Wilson
Do you
diver.
know how hard it was for me to not retire that rig?
Really?
I had to hide it.
No, you got to leave it.
You've got to save it. Couple of back
I've got
shots.
OCD, haven't I? I can't have rigs that are not retired, fresh rigs.
It's got full spoiler hydroelastic in it. You sure you want to
Mate,
leave it?
look at the bottom of that section.
There's Northerners kicking about
Here,
here.
look at the bottom of that section. I've got a lot of top kits, and I think that's probably the only one that looks that new at the bottom. So that's not even been used properly. Look here.
I've got a feeling, you know, when the next people come in to do podcasts now, I reckon they'll want to look at this rig more than a lot of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. But it'll always be there as that's the rig that you won it with.
That's the rig he won the Parkdean
That
Masters
is the
final
rig,
on. Mate, I've absolutely loved it. I'm sure that everyone listening
I've really
and
enjoyed it,
watching
mate.
will have as well.
Like I said, I've been scribbling away in my notebook because you've just some of the advice for me as a beginner has just been, priceless.
I think that's what it's all about is, again, I'm going to do it dead quick. Look, Matt's looking at me. Water's coming, I know it. But we were all at step one at one stage, and we're all on different parts of our journey. And it's important to remember that. I remember the words of wisdom that were given to me at certain points in my life, and I wouldn't be where I am now without that. And that's what you've got to remember, and that's hopefully, again, like with my match focus, that's what I'm trying to, I want to show people. In this world, we are told you can't do this and you can't do that because you needed to have this and you needed to be born like this. No, that's nonsense. You can do whatever you want to do. If you're dedicated and you invest enough time and effort into it, you can be whatever you want to be. And I'm a big believer in that. And I think that's what's important. We need more that in the world rather than negativity. And that's what I'm all about.
Brilliant. Yeah. And what a positive podcast it's been. And to finish it, mate,
I can't believe you boys made me cry.
Listen, once again, massive congratulations.
Pleasure,
I'm having you back.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much. And a final massive well done, mate.
Thank you ever so much.
Loved
it's been a
it.
pleasure. Thank you, Toby.
Cheers. Thank you, mate.
The Fishing Gurus Podcast.